the group of threatening the businessman and forcing him to pay a protection fee, failing which his businesses would allegedly be shut down by force. Over the 3-year period, the businessman is said to have paid 60-year-old Sibanyoni more than 2.2 million rand. However, Sibanyoni seems undeterred, telling journalists last week that being behind bars would give him an opportunity to preach the word of God to criminals in jail. Makozi Ko, Eyewitness News, Kwaggafontein.
In the Western Cape, Presiding Judge Robert Henney has warned delays in the trial of alleged underworld figure Nafees Modak will no longer be tolerated after a key witness backed out of testifying. A Goodwood prison inmate who cannot be named was set to corroborate evidence in the murder of the police's anti-gangs unit head, Charles Kinnear. Modak, who is on trial with 14 others, face more than 120 charges, including Kinnear's killing 6 years ago. Carlo Peterson reports.
The inmate was expected to support testimony from IPA Deputy Provincial Head for the Western Cape, Mario September, who previously told the court the prisoner identified the alleged shooter as a member of Ralph Stanfield's 28th gang. However, the witness refused to testify, saying he feared for his safety and that of his family. Judge Robert Henney agreed to temporarily excuse the witness and recall September.
And once again, I must stand down, wait for you. And this is an abuse. And I'm warning you, this is not going to happen again.
The trial continues today, with Henney set to decide whether to close Modak's case. Carlo Peterson, Eyewitness News.
And the World Health Organization says it is maintaining its assessment of the hantavirus outbreak as low risk. A cruise ship where the outbreak originated is expected to end its journey in the Netherlands today. The WHO says the public health risk has been reassessed with the most current information available and the global risk remaining low. The organization says while additional cases may still occur among passengers and crew members, containment measures have been implemented. The ship, operated by Dutch company Oceanwide Expeditions, have made headlines after 3 passengers died from hantavirus, a rare virus for which no vaccines or specific treatments exist. Gold is trading at $4,543.41 an ounce. The rand is at 16.70 to the dollar, 22.29 to the pound, 19.43 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $111.16 a barrel.
In the traffic in Edenvale, traffic remains sluggish on the R24 West approaching the Kalulis interchange, and look out for faulty traffic lights in Edenvale at the N3 North and Modderfontein.
A partly cloudy day in store for Gauteng. The temperatures will peak at highs between 20 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour. More details of the state's case against the grandparents of missing Limpopo toddler Umpiles Tole are expected to be revealed in court today.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
Joburg is more than just a city. It's an energy that connects us all.
That's what makes this one so special.
In 702, Josie My Josie Walk the Talk, hosted by the City of Johannesburg. Enter now on primemediaplus.com.
702.
Live
On the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856
92.7
and 106 FM. Let's walk the talk.
It's just gone 6 minutes past 9. Good morning. Welcome to the Clement Manyathela Show. My name is Komoto Mudise and I'm in for Clem this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Happy Monday. I hope that you are enjoying your Monday morning and you get up for the new week. I mean, it's been an eventful weekend on the news front. Quite a bit that's been happening, and we're going to be reflecting on that on the show. So coming up, we're going to be speaking about the process that will follow now that the Phala report is before Parliament. So we know that the President is taking the Section 89 panel report on review. That's one part of the legal process. But there are reports of the President also wanting to interdict the entire parliamentary process, pending the outcome of the review. What are the issues at play here? What would the courts have to consider? We're going to be speaking to a legal analyst on that a little later on in the show. And then at the weekend, we saw reports about Gauteng metros having racked up billions in unpaid traffic fines. And now a whole lot of that money has been written off as irrecoverable. And this has shone the spotlight on an important issue around the role in fine collection. While metros, so that's Johannesburg, Tshwane, Ekurhuleni, they lead the collection drive for fines, it's the provincial government that gets to keep the lion's share. We speak to the chair of SCOPA, the Standing Committee of Public Accounts, that is Songezo Zibi, is going to be on the show. And then hopefully we'll also be able to get Jongizizwe Labaji. He's the Ekurhuleni Finance MMC. They are a metro that's really suffering from this as well. And then in the final hour, we're going to be speaking to Gail Friend. We talk about tough love. It's often applied as a last resort, something that you do because you've tried everything for your loved one. But is tough love an act of care or control? And how do you know when we've gone just too far in applying this tough love? That's going to be in the final hour of the show. Of course, it is our Family Matters feature. That's what's coming up on the show. On the team this morning, I've got Abele, who is our technical producer here in studio. Uzinhle and Snazo are taking your calls. They are our call screeners and the producers of the show. Clement Manyathela is on the traffic, and I am Modise in for Clement Manyathela this morning. Get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. The number to dial to join the conversation is 011-883-0702. Alternatively, send us a WhatsApp on 072-702-1702. If you want to get in touch with me on X, my handle is at @Modzo_Modise.
702
Let's walk the talk on 92.7
and 106 FM.
The open line is brought to you by Truecaller. Trust the real ones on 702. So, good morning. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been an interesting weekend on the sporting front, but there's also been a lot in the Sunday papers. It's always so refreshing when I see the Sunday papers looking a little thick, right? Because it means there's a lot to get through. There was a bit of analysis also in the Sunday Times this weekend, which was great to read. And I do think that some of the stories that stood out for me, at least, include that story of Matala potentially striking a plea deal with the state. Did you see that? It said that Matala is in plea talks with IDAC, the investigating directorate, and this is for his corruption case. So it's the Medicare 24 case that's being heard in the Pretoria Magistrates Court. It's the case where he stands accused with about 12 police officers, as well as the senior or the top cop, the country's top cop, who's suspended for now, and that is Fani Masemola. But he is said to be offering information to the state. And what I found to be interesting there is that in the article, it says the information that he's giving is new information, which says to me, could it be that the state didn't really have much? It's a fraud and corruption case, fraud, corruption, and money laundering. At least the police officers who are charged and Matala, those are the charges that they're facing. Fani Masemola, of course, has been charged for the violations of the Public Finance Management Act, which is a little different. But the point is that Matala wants to start singing, and he wants to get into a plea agreement with the state. And I found that to be so interesting. The fact that IDAC is even listening to Matala and they're taking what he's saying seriously. In fact, there was a quote that the spokesperson of IDAC, Henry Mamutame, is that they are considering what he said. The consultation process has been completed. There was also a part of the article that stood out for me where it said the head of IDAC, that's Andrea Johnson, she had a problem with the fact that Matala had been taken to eBongweni because they were about to have a conversation, or they were about to have that consultation process with him. That says to me that IDAC was really desperate to hear from Matala. Now I'm wondering, do they even have anything on these police officers, or were they clutching at straws to begin with? But the fact that Matala can even want to get into this plea agreement, and of course, he doesn't want to do this for free. I mean, you'd imagine he wants to either get off with a slap on the wrist, or he'll try, get the shortest sentence, or get off completely. That's what he wants, ultimately. That had me wondering, man, about the fact that a man who is accused of crimes of this nature and looting the state can potentially get off with close to no repercussions because he's got this valuable information. And I was wondering, is it that the state didn't have this information? Does that speak to the state's challenges in investigating? Because we know that the NPA is struggling when it comes to investigating capacity. Is the state now going to be taking what Matala says, a questionable character, Matala, and they're desperate to get this information from him because they just can't do the investigations as they should be because of the challenges that they have in terms of resources. There's so much at play here. I mean, whatever it is, I do think that this really does point to a challenge in the system, but what message does it send? That perpetrators of crime can loot the state, do as they please. Over 300 million rand, I think, is the value of the tender, and he managed to score over 200 million rand of that, and now he can just say, "I'm going to rat out and snitch, so to speak, on the police officers that gave me this tender in exchange for my freedom." That's really odd. So yeah, that's what's going on there. That was an interesting story that stood out for me. And then, oh man, my Pirates fans, Mapaga Chuchu. I know the host of this show is a Paga Chuchu. Maybe that's he's happy that he's not here today because things are very, very tense. I mean, this weekend, I want to tell you a story about what happened with my husband, who's a Pirates fan this weekend. But just for a bit of context, Orlando Pirates were held at a draw by Durban City this past weekend. And that result it's left them at a very tricky spot. Just a short while ago, a few days ago, it looked like the PSL title was theirs. You know, they were just going to be taking this. They were going to be at the top and they were going to be the ultimate champions. But now they have to beat Ovid College to keep their hopes alive. And if they don't, Sundowns could take the title, yet again, rather. What makes it even more interesting right now is that many Pirates fans, I don't know if you saw that, but many Pirates fans were already celebrating. In my home, my husband, Abuti Okepilan Lena, he was already celebrating. We woke up on Saturday morning getting ready to go to church, and he said, "You know, I want to wear a white shirt and a paga tie." He wanted to wear a tie with the skull, you know, on it. And he said, because we are going to be champions today. And I could see the joy on his face. Now, I am a Makozi fan, so of course, much to my annoyance, I could see his joy. And he said, we are going to be champions. And we went to church and we came back. And in the evening, the house was just a little too quiet. I could tell that something was not quite right because he was so quiet. And I realized what had happened. And now he's sitting on the edge of his seat. In fact, it reminded me of a clip that I saw. I think we've got that clip ready. And I kept on saying this to him this weekend. Take a listen.
The pressure is getting...
Yes, sir. The pressure is getting worse. Oh, man, my Pirates people. Look, I mean, because Rona Makozi, we don't stand a chance here. I would like him to win. I would like you guys to win. But I can't help but have a bit of celebration when things get tense for my Pirates fans. So the pressure is getting worse. And we are all watching for what happens this weekend. But this had me thinking, have you ever celebrated too soon? Because hey, they were celebrating. They were already celebrating. They were planning their outfits even. Have you ever celebrated too soon? Maybe you thought you got the job, or you were sure that the contract was signed and sealed, and you even told people the good news already. Huh? You said to people, I got it, only for it to fall through. And I'm not saying that it's going to fall through. I'm just saying things are a little tricky right now. So has that ever happened to you, where you blew the horn too quick and you celebrated a little too soon, and before you knew it, things were a little tricky on your part? I'm taking your calls on 011 883 0702, 072 702 1702.
702
Let's walk the talk on 92.7
and 106 FM.
Ausgomot, wabona wena with mentioning our problems dating over the weekend about being overconfident. Re tlo banner from coming back to this show again. Re tlo banner Gomotso. Re tlohelle man. How? We made we were very confident. We still are. Mara re tlohelle, please.
Hey Motso, Aubrey and First Loras. Thanks, Motso, for hosting this show. You know what was going to happen if Clement was there. So We don't know where he is, but I guess I know where the problem is at. As for Ket Matala, I'm very disappointed in our state when I'm also. It shows that, as we are saying, there's lack of investigations and stuff. So, but let us hear the plea bargain. What does it say? But as for my point, Ket has to be arrested and sentenced. The plea bargain can be, okay, Ket, we are not sentencing you to 100 years. We are giving you 50 years. He mustn't get anything less than 10 years from my consent. Thanks, Mutso.
Hey, you see, so for me, the challenge here is that he's the main guy. He's the main beneficiary here. And him getting off, so would the idea be he gives them information on the police officers? Because most of the police officers that are charged here, if not all of them, are the supply chain and the supply chain wing of SAPS, right? So would he give them information on them and how this works, how the circumvention of the systems work, and then he gets off? That worries me a lot. And I know that a man like Vusmuzi Matala is not going to want to give crucial information and get nothing in return or little in return. I think he's going to want to get the maximum out of this. And the challenge that I have with that really is the fact that we know that the NPA struggles when it comes to investigating capacity. We've sat through trials where you can see the cracks because of capacity. And I don't want to pretend like we don't know that there are great challenges there. And they even have said, even the new head of the NPA, Advocate Andy Mutibi, has spoken about the challenges at the NPA. So the fact that there are challenges there, we know. And Vusmuzi Matala wants to take advantage of that. Can we call that justice? Can we say that's justice? Where the big fish, because he's the main guy. In fact, at this rate, I would want to take any other person giving information. Let it be any of the police officers giving the information. I wouldn't worry about that, right? But when the man who has been allegedly looting and has taken millions from the state, if you go to Tembisa Hospital, it's always so heartbreaking. And now we know what the hospital could actually be. And that man gets to negotiate and bargain with the state. That's very concerning for me. I really wonder, I'm more interested in what exactly IDAC had and whether they had any information. And it also feeds into the narrative, because we can't ignore the fact that there is a narrative that IDAC is being used here. It's being used to prosecute Fani Masemola and to get certain people off the hook. There is a narrative that IDAC doesn't have pure intentions. And this feeds into that narrative about IDAC and the fact that they know exactly what they were doing. When I read in the Sunday Times that Andrea Johnson had a problem with Matala being taken to Epongweni because she wanted to consult with him, I said, what's this urgency? You know, what's this about? Why are you so desperate to be doing this, Andrea Johnson, to be consulting with Vusmuzi Matala? Do you not believe in your case? That worries me truly. And I think we need to be honest about whether that's the type of justice, if it is justice, that we want. Would you feel that justice has been served if Vusmuzi Matala were to get off the hook for this corruption charge? Let's take more voice notes.
Hi, Komoto. Hi, family. Gia here. Yo, Pirates. My mother is a big Pirates fan, and like this weekend, we had visitors for the whole weekend sleeping over. Mind you, after the Pirates game, she like turned off to everyone. Like, she's so mad. She's not even mad. She's heartbroken. Why would Pirates do this to her? She's heartbroken. She went to church. She came back early from church because she couldn't. She's still not surviving. Like, she's holding her fingers, everything, like crossing everything, that the coming game we win. It's so sad. Pirates do better.
Khumutso, good morning. I want to know, as your Pirates fans, what's going to happen those champagne that have been opened on Saturday? Hey. Location, CPT town, it was unmovable because of Pirates celebrating. You can't celebrate while the chicken is not yet around the house. It's already not yet cut. You just boil the water, said you're going to eat chicken today. So now I want to know what's going to happen to those champagnes. You're going to buy another ones for this weekend, because this weekend is going to be still the same thing. Hey, in this one, I can say big up to Tolage. Tolage even said it's a draw 1-1, but I think he got it right. He You got it right. Hey, I'm very, very. It's pity for Clement. I had luck.
Khomotso. Siyawukhuza ne as Orlando Pirates siyawukhuza. Never speak negative about your team. You speak positive so that they can win. We are gonna win, Khomotso. We are going to win. We speak faith in Orlando Pirates, our team. Khomotso. Siyawukhuza phela. Ngeke phela. Bye.
Yeah, I knew when I was entering this studio that I was coming into a tricky turf, right? A tricky terrain. I know I'm a paga, the paga chuchus. They are the listeners of this show. However, I couldn't stop myself from having a bit of fun with you guys. Somebody here saying, morning commenter, as a Pirates fan, we need to take Saturday's result on review. We suspect foul play from various parties who weren't part of the game. But you know how delayed gratification is more fulfilling? Come to Mbombela and witness wild scenes. Total elation. And that's Sabelo from Rockville. Sabelo, you see, you didn't learn your lesson of counting the chickens before they hatch. I think now the Pirates people must just be praying, must just pray that something happens, that things go according to your way, especially because we know how hard and how bad Pirates fans take this. You know, the lady who sent a voice note now to say their mother is basically depressed about this. I've been seeing so many posts online about this, and that's because people had already planned. They already knew. As you say, the champagne was already popped. And there's a lesson there. There is a lesson that we can learn there about counting chickens before they hatch. And really speaking before. Don't talk before. You know, my grandmother used to say, Ako thule. She used to say that to me all the time. She said, Ako thule, keep quiet. Don't speak before it happens, because you don't know what will happen. And now you are embarrassed. But I'm hoping for you, my dear Pirates fans, that things will look good and things will be on the up for you. We're taking more of your voice notes.
Good morning, Homoto. Yes, I have found myself celebrating also too soon. That was in 2024. Well, end of 2023. I was so certain, I'm going to UJ. I'm going to apply in UJ and I'm gonna be a student there. The best part is that I also knew someone who was in a financial scheme, like those NSFAS things, Funza Lushaka to be specific. So I was covered. I even knew someone who was working in the UJ. So yeah, I was covered. I was very covered. And then guess what? I got 67% on my English marks. And for you to be a teacher, they want you to have 70% in English, first additional language. And guess what? That was the last time I cried. 2024, February.
Yo Khomotso. Talk of Khotola pele moropa olla. You know, jumping the gun. Hey, thinking that it's all, in order. I once celebrated that I'm about to change my surname. Guess what? Evan left me at the altar and told me to pick up the pieces. Ngeke. Me, I wait until I see the final results in black and white and see evidence. Otherwise, I've learned my lessons. Celebrating before the final. I've had it. I'm sorry, Mapagania, sorry, but at least it was a draw. I guess they're waiting for the Chiefs to be number 2 in the log.
Hey, you know what? There's a lesson. I'm glad you learned your lesson there. In fact, when it comes to things of marriage, that happens quite a bit. There's a trend right now in Black communities where the lobola negotiations have now become where people have a lobola luncheon. I think that's what they call it. So people will have a lobola luncheon, and for the first sitting of lobola, they will have, it's almost like a mini wedding. That's what it looks like to me, because people have tents and decor and they prepare for people to come, and you tell your friends, that, listen, they're going to come and lobola me. And we know what happens with some of these lobola negotiations. One of two things, or one of three things. It could go well, but what could also happen is that the groom just doesn't pitch. And there you are with your tent and your decor and your friends and your scarf that says "Becoming Mrs." Oh man, what a disappointment. And I suppose the third one really is that the lobola negotiations themselves don't go well, and the uncles don't agree. And so I've learned, and I always say to my relatives, younger siblings, younger cousins who are, who will get married, that allow that first part to go first before you start celebrating and having things, and having decor on the first sitting of lobola. There's absolutely no need. In fact, call me old school and archaic, but I believe the first sitting of lobola, if you're going to have it in parts, or even the lobola process, is just family. Just have your family. There's absolutely no need to have the world there and the world knowing about it. And maybe it's because of that anxiety to say things just might not go well. Of course, we're speaking about Pirates at the weekend and how they were already celebrating being the league winners. But unfortunately, their dreams have been, I don't want to say crushed, because they haven't been crushed yet. I want to be fair to you, Mapagapaga. Your dreams have been disturbed a bit by that draw. And we do hope that this weekend you will be able to rise again. Of course, as a Kosi fan, I'm indifferent about these results because I know that there's no way I'm winning this. But having a Pagania husband means that from time to time, just to troll him, I remind him just how bad things and bleak things could end up being at the weekend. All right, we are taking more of your calls. This is the 702 open line. I think another story that we saw happening this weekend was the IFP announcing the Johannesburg Human Settlements MMC Mlungisi Mabaso as its mayoral candidate. Did you see that story? It was an interesting one that played out, and of course, we're starting to see more announcements. In fact, I think Rise Mzansi is going to be making its own announcement soon as well. We're seeing more announcements happening with mayoral candidates. And I was wondering, how are the political parties, what are the political parties prioritizing, right? Because to me, I'd imagine you want to feel the candidate that people have confidence in. But some of the candidates that I'm seeing, I don't think people know a lot about, and there isn't the visibility that is required. But what are you looking for as the candidates are being announced, mayoral candidates are being announced ahead of the local government elections? Local government elections on the 4th of November towards the end of the year. But already we're seeing movement in that space. We are likely to see more names being mentioned over the next couple of weeks and more hats being thrown in the ring. We'll be taking more of your voice notes and your calls on that after the headlines. Siso Zulu standing by. Siso, good morning. What's on the headlines?
Thanks, Khomotso. Good morning. Former Umzimkhulu local municipal manager Stanley Skhosana will today return to court for the murder of ANC politician Sindiso Magwenya. Magwenya, who was a councillor at the municipality during Skhosana's tenure, was killed in 2017. Skhosana was arrested by the Political Killings Task Team in July last year after being implicated by hitman Sibusiso Ngcengwa. In the Western Cape, presiding judge Robert Henney has warned delays in the trial of alleged underworld figure Nafis Modak will no longer be tolerated after a key witness backed out of testifying. A Goodwood prison inmate who cannot be named was set to corroborate evidence in the murder of the police's anti-gangs unit head, Charles Kinnear. Modak, who is on trial with 14 others, faces more than 120 charges, including that of Kinnear's killing 6 years ago. And finance chiefs from the G7 industrialized nations will gather in parts of Paris today for 2 days on talks aimed at forging a united front as the Middle East war roils economic prospects worldwide. France, which currently chairs the rotating presidency of the Group of Seven, faces the tricky task of keeping dialogue open as trade feuds spurred by U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff blitz compound geopolitical tensions. And those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 10 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
In Sandton, there's slow-moving traffic on the N1 North between Winnie Mandela Drive and Rivonia Road. Look out for faulty traffic lights in Rand Park Ridge at the N1 North in Beyers Nodia, as well as in four ways at Winnie Mandela and Monte Casino. Over in the capital city, traffic lights are also out in Groenkloof at the N14 in Eufus Road, in Danville at Vormhagen and Transoranje Road, as well as in Centurion at Old Johannesburg and Brakfontein. If you come across any other traffic, please do send us a WhatsApp voice note on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Africa Milani.
Weekday mornings,
4 to 6.
What happened? Why didn't Orlando Pirates win and therefore secure the title?
That Durban City team, they came out with the main object of not allowing Pirates to win.
It's like someone paid them to play like that because they played low block and they didn't give Pirates a chance.
I can't believe you are accusing Durban City of being paid to play like that. They come up with a strategy, with a plan, and the objective, of course, being to win.
Africa Milani.
4 to 6 on 702.
The world's best male and female paddle players are coming to South Africa for the historic Premier Paddle Pretoria P1 at Sunbet Arena Times Square from the 26th of July to the 2nd of August. Expect world-class action, unbelievable energy, live entertainment, premium hospitality, incredible food, and an atmosphere unlike anything South African sport has seen before. This is Africa's biggest paddle tournament ever, and tickets are selling fast. Don't miss your chance to witness the sport's biggest stars live in South Africa. Get your tickets now at primemediaplus.com.
In life's most challenging moments of loss, compassion can be your greatest comfort. You shouldn't have to face the financial burden of losing a loved one by yourself. Rest assured, Clientele's funeral plans pay out cash within 24 hours. You can cover up to 13 family members on one plan, ensuring all your loved ones are taken care of, and 3 children are covered at no additional cost. With Clientele, you're not just buying a plan, you're also buying peace of mind. When the time comes, you will need to make important calls with your 200 Rand airtime you will receive when you claim. Plans offer double accidental death cover, as well as transport, grocery, and unveiling benefits. Apply today, it's easy. There are no medical examinations and no paperwork. SMS funeral to 31586. That's 31586. Clientele Life is an authorized FSP and licensed life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Shane, do you have a sore throat? The Andalex range of lozenges offers 2 options. At the first signs of an irritated, scratchy throat, use Andalex lozenges for dual action, soothing relief. But for a painful, inflamed throat, use Andalex C lozenges for triple action, pain relief. Andalex, SA's #1 choice for a sore mouth and throat. Andalex lozenges are available at all leading pharmacies and supermarkets.
Just Andalex it. Open Line on the Clement Manyathela Show is brought to you by Truecaller. Trust the real ones on 702.
Welcome back. This is the 702 Open Line with me, Komoto Mudisi. I'm in for Clement this morning, and I'm taking more of your voice notes and your calls. In fact, let's take some voice notes.
Good morning, Moto. On the Ket Maklala issue, the plea bargain is just for Ket to not get a harsh sentence. It doesn't mean the state doesn't have enough information. There's a high chance that the state has enough information to give him a very harsh sentence, but for the sentence to be a bit light, like sentence light, he will get into a plea bargain where he gives that extra information about other people. In that case, he's going to get a lighter sentence. It doesn't necessarily mean that the state does not have information to prosecute him and put him away for a very long time.
Good morning, Komoto. Thanks for a great show. Deboho from Rustenburg. Komoto, I really don't think Ket Matala is the big fish here. And I would be very glad if the state gives him that pre-bargaining, because this is when everything's going to be out in the open. I think there are bigger fishes than just Ket Matala. Hence, you see, even a controversial guy like Morgan Maumela has not even appeared in front of the commission, and everyone is watching. So let's hear what Ket Matala has to say. I think there's more big fishes to catch here. Thank you.
Good morning, says Khomoso. Says Khomoso, the only mission for IDEC is just to go after Masemula. That's why they're in talks with Ket Matala. You'll see the only target for them to run this case is only to remove Masema so that the cartel can take in charge. Tsepo, Bramfonte. Thank you, says Khomoso.
Thank you so much for those voice notes. Yeah, I mean, of course, this is on the back of Vusimuzi Ket Matala, said to be in plea talks with IDEC. Look, I do think that an interesting part of the article is that it says that Ket Matala has already been speaking about very high-profile people and has been mentioning high-profile people. Could those people include a Morgan Hangwani Maumela? Maybe. I don't know if Ket Matala would want to rat out or snitch on a Morgan Hangwani Maumela. I'm also interested in why Maumela hasn't been charged, because the Medicare 24 tender, the investigation into that, a lot of what the state is bringing to court is based on the SIU investigation, right? You remember how the SIU came out with all these details speaking about the syndicates, and they gave about 3 different syndicates. And on Vusimuzi Ket Matala's syndicate was Morgan Maumela. Now, if Matala is being charged for this, Medicare 24 Tshwane, and he's being prosecuted for it in the Pretoria Magistrates Court, how is it that the man that he's said to have been working with, Morgan Hangwani Maumela, isn't in the dock with him? I find that to be odd. So if he's going to be speaking, and he says he's going to be speaking about high-profile people, I truly hope that Maumela is one of those high-profile people, because then there's no point. There's no point in all of it. Of course, this is all still alleged, and it's an allegation that must be tested in the courts. But I don't understand the logic of having these people that are said to be together in this looting and that are alleged to have been working together, but only one of them is in court as an accused and not the other. So let's see what happens there. Of course, what will happen is that the state must consider the information before it. The state must consider what Matala is saying and consider the value of what he's saying. And if they find it to be valuable for their case, then they will negotiate on a plea deal and what he will get in exchange. I'm sure that what he wants is, to be let off the hook. There's also IDEC, the issue around IDEC and Masemola, that last voice note. And I keep saying that this feeds into the narrative. You see, I'm not sold that IDEC is doing this because they are trying to get to Masemola and his faction, right? Masemola's faction being Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi and them. And I say faction in inverted commas. I'm not sure. I'm not sold on that. But I can tell you that IDEC being in talks with Vusimuzi Ket Matala fuels that narrative, that this was all about getting to Masemola, especially because the charges that Masemola has against him are rather peculiar in nature. I mean, we don't generally see people being prosecuted for PFMA, matters in criminal court. It hardly ever happens. That's why everyone was asking, what's going on here? So if Matala is going to be, if Matala is going to be saying and singing like a canary, and then they let him off with a slap on the wrist, and they continue with charging Fani Masemola with these PFMA charges, and at the end of it all, the outcome is that Masemola gets off. We don't know. We don't know if he'll get off or if he will be prosecuted for this and he will be convicted. But I can tell you that it's clear what it looks like currently. It's feeding into the narrative that this was all about getting Masemola, and this has nothing to do with the law. Of course, this is a story to keep a close eye on. They're back in court. It's in June, I believe, towards the end of June, and the state should give further details on their way forward. It is the type of case that takes forever because there's so many accused. And you know what happens when there are many accused? Someone decides, listen, I want to change my legal representative. I can tell you now that before the end of the trial, people's monies are going to run out. We're going to see people now going for legal aid. There's going to be a lot of delays in this. I don't see this case being finished in a year, not even 2 years. But I suppose we have to wait and see. All right. I see some of your WhatsApp, someone here saying, hey, I learned my lesson as well. I never talk about anything until it happens, whether it's business or family things. Dating is even worse. So the minute you mention him to your close friends or your siblings, he disappoints you and you break up. Of course, this is in response to our conversation around what happened with Pirates at the weekend. They were supposed to be the champions, but things didn't go their way, and we have to wait and see what happens this weekend. But yeah, I will always say that there's value in just keeping your silence, especially when you're not sure about it. But there is something, and maybe we need to speak about the psychology of this. There is something in you, especially if you're an oversharer, that wants to speak before things happen. There's just something that it's almost as though, even when you know that I shouldn't say anything because whatever I'm going to talk about hasn't been finalized, but there's something in you that says, I want to share it. I want to tell the next person. I want to brag. And you need to fight that spirit. Fight that spirit. Someone else here saying, morning. It really helps to keep the lobola ceremony small. My cousin had her partner promising to pay lobola, and the big ceremony was arranged, and the guy made no show on the day. They went to his home only to find him drunk and not having the money to send the uncles. Very sad. Now imagine if you had a tent, you invited everyone, all your friends, all your neighbors, you made a big thing about it, and now there's egg on your face. I mean, it's still heartbreaking because you thought that this was it for you. But I think I can take the shame when I'm alone as opposed to taking it with the entire village. Let's take more of your voice notes.
Hi, Komodo. How are you, Komodo? I trust you're well. I'd like to comment on this situation of Kat Matala making a deal. Listen, my argument is, if you listen to the counts they have, not the allegations, which are being investigated, the counts which are brought in front of the court, 11 counts of murder, and you are accused number one of 11 counts of murder. If I'm not mistaken, that means Kat Matala, if he wants to plead guilty and play difficult, he was looking at nothing less than 90 or 100 years in jail if found guilty. So he is going to go to jail for a long time, but he's going to lessen his sentence, also get a chance of parole. The wise thing was for Kat Matala to take a deal. He's in the corner. It's game over for him.
Good morning, Komodo and 702 listeners. My name is Mlulegi in Daveyton. Regarding the Kat Matala situation, I think IDEC is being used. It's being used by Kat Matala. Mr. Matala, if he had information, he was going to give it to them before even the arrest. Why now?
Yeah, so I want to help my brother over there who sent the voice note initially, right? Because it is easy to get these things mixed up because there's so much happening in the courts, and Matala is in the courts at least for two matters. So, firstly, it's not that matter that you're referring to. He's in the court. This plea deal is for the corruption matter. So this is for his corruption, fraud, money laundering matter. It's the Medicare 24 matter. And it's around that tender, the 300 million rand plus tender that he's being accused of. Number two, Matala is not facing any charges for murder, even in the other case. In the other case, he's facing attempted murder charges. And yes, there's about 25 charges in total. 11 of those are attempted murder. And one of them, of course, that sparked the whole thing and sparked his arrest was the attempt on Tebogo Thobejane, his girlfriend, right? Or his socialite ex-girlfriend. So Matala doesn't have any murder charges against him. Let's get that clear. Number two, it's all attempted murder, and it's 11 attempted murder charges between him, his wife Tsakane, two other people, as well as, or I should say 3 other people, right, including Tabiseng and Nzama. So that's what it currently looks like. Number 3, I think, there is no such thing as not having the option of parole in our country, right? So unlike in the U.S., and I know that we always get this wrong because in the United States, they'll say this person has been sentenced without the option of parole. We don't really have that here. And our legal friends can help us with that. But people get sentenced. They will get sentenced to lengthy sentences, but never without the option of parole. So that's what's at play here. But I do get your idea. I do get the point that Vusmuzi Matala will take the opportunity if it's presented at him to lessen his sentence. And anyone would, right? Especially because his problems just continue to mount. I can tell you now that from the testimony that we've heard at the Malanga Commission, Vusmuzi Matlala's problems are just going to get worse. They are just going to get worse. We're going to see more charges against him. In fact, the second report, we know that the Malanga Commission isn't sitting this week because they are compiling their second interim report. The second report, based on the information and the testimony that we've heard over the last couple of months, should include findings on Vusmuzi Matlala. And the political, or not the political killings task team, but the Malanga Commission task team is going to be investigating him as well for those crimes. So I think there's a lot that's at play there. I do hear the people also that are saying that they feel that IDAC is being used. It's a popular narrative, it's a popular view, and I do think that that IDAC shouldn't feed into that narrative. We'll be taking more of your calls and your WhatsApps after this.
702 Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.
My show is about getting you informed by the time you get to the office, your place of business, or wherever you need to go. Hopefully, you have a fairly good idea what's happening in Johannesburg, in Gauteng, and around the world. We want you to be part of those water cooler conversations, and you will be part of those conversations because you'll be a better informed citizen. What I liked about the 702 family and 702 land is the ecosystem that we have built, the community. It's all about connection because we may be different, but ultimately the people you talk to and the people you hear are facing issues just like you.
702 Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa, weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m.
Apparently, something big is coming our way, Mzansi. It seems like a takeover is about to happen. And with it comes big change and even bigger ideas, more opportunities and more ways to win at life. So if you're tired of life never giving you a real chance, be on the lookout on the 1st of June 2026, because that chance you've been waiting for is finally coming home with Sizekaya. A new chapter begins. Stay tuned for updates on the 21st of May.
Did you know that you are entitled to buy a new, demo, or used car without a service or a maintenance plan? You can also use an independent workshop for all servicing and maintenance needs without your warranty being automatically voided. Independent workshops are entitled to all technical info and parts needed to work on your vehicle, so you can shop around for the best price and service. Right to Repair. It's your choice. Visit righttorepair.org.za.
To walk the talk is to turn words into meaningful actions. And it's what we at 702 are committed to doing every day. We are also committed to following the rules set out by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission's Code of Conduct, to give you balanced programming, fair comments, and accurate news. But if we stumble along the way and you feel we are not living up to the code, let us know on comment@702.co.za. And if after that you're still not happy, you can direct your complaint in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission. Email bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more, visit bccsa.co.za.
For more about 702,
go to primemediaplus.com.
It's 10 minutes to 10, and it's the 702 open line. You know how I said that it's easy to confuse matters with this Vusmuzi Matala and Malanga Commission matters? It's very easy to get it wrong because there's so much happening in that space. I think I may have done the same as well. So let's correct that. So Vusmuzi Matala, in the matter in the Pretoria High Court, is being charged and prosecuted for the Medicare 24 tender. However, what the SIU had been investigating was the Tembisa tender, and that's the one with Hangwani Morgan Maumela. So the two should not be confused. It's very easy to get them wrong, right? Because they're all happening at the same time. And I do think that whenever we hear large sums of money, then, you know, of course, you think, oh, this is in reference to that or in relation to that. But what's been dealt with in the Pretoria Magistrates Court for now is not the Tembisa Hospital tender. It's the Medicare 24 tender. It's the police tender, which is a little different to the Tembisa Hospital tender. All right, we are taking more of your calls. I do see many of your voice notes coming in, so let's take some of them.
Morning, Khomoto and the team. Tawam from Cape Town. Khomoto, when it comes to Ket Matala and the state, I feel like now we are being turned into a joke of a state, because this guy is accused of serious crimes, not like serious crimes, and then for him to say, I want to give you information, and then you guys, then you cut my sentence short or whatever. Then what message are they sending to proper criminals out there who are the same like him? So we can kill people, we can steal, we can do whatever, and then we turn around and we say we will give you information on other people. That's not justice. That's not justice. That's like, it's a joke. It's a joke. And then he's gonna come out. Who to say that he won't repeat what he went for in there? Who to say he's not gonna repeat? Yo.
Hi, Commentor. Yeah, it's quite concerning this developments with Ket Matlala's case. For me, it's even more sad because there's people that have allowed this looting to happen. Besides just Ket Matlala, there's people inside these facilities, these institutions that have allowed it to happen, that have benefited from this. And I feel like, you know, we're going nowhere if those people are not put behind bars, because this will not stop. It will continue and it will continue. And I think the state wants it that way because some of these politicians are benefiting from these monies. So they would want the looting to happen. They will want to make sure that MPA does not have the capacity to be able to prosecute so that they can continue to loot. It's sad.
Morning, KG. Hey, Durban City did us a good favor, man. It was a good weekend. You know, it was quiet. So I passed by my friends. I see they were ready to celebrate. I just passed there and hoot. You know, in Sipedi, we call them Bomavina Botsola. You start dancing before the parents' dish. Anyway, on the Ket Matala issue, I think IDEC is just letting on straws. They're letting on straws when a KG. They don't know because it's good. This case is going to blow up on their faces. I'm telling you. Have a great one, Mwakwe and Joburg.
Hey, Abutungwako, it was very quiet even in my house. I'm telling you, the number one Paga fan, the number one Pirates fan was too quiet. And that's why I even decided to check. Ordinarily I wouldn't have checked because if we are not playing Makozi, that I don't really check. But I could hear how quiet he was. And I saw how enthusiastic and excited he was in the morning when we were getting ready. He even wanted to wear Pirates clothes to church. That's how ready he was for this. So the silence at the end of the day was very telling for me. And shame, I think many of you experienced it the same way. But yeah, I'm hoping things will look better for you towards the end of the week. Thank you so much for your voice notes. When it comes to IDEC, I always, of course, IDEC was created to investigate corruption and lead particularly in those state capture corruption cases. And that's been their mandate. And I know that people are very critical of the work that they do, particularly because it seems as though they've been drawn into this ring, right? And there are a lot of narratives and allegations, particularly after we saw Andrea Johnson testifying before in Parliament. I get that. I hear that, I just I'm choosing to hope that the intentions of IDEC are good, because we don't need another institution that's going to be abused. We don't need that as a country. We don't need an institution that's going to be manipulated to settle scores. That's the last thing this country needs. We've taken on this fight against corruption, and I love to see what people, because people, there's a confidence in the air, particularly around the Matlanga Commission. There's confidence now that things are happening. We're actually seeing arrests, which is absolutely amazing. We cannot have an institution like IDEC being manipulated. So I'm choosing to believe that that's not the case. I want to believe that that's not the case. I also do believe in the capabilities. And I said this the last time I was actually on this show when Advocate Andy Mutibi was announced as the head of the NPA. I said, I believe in the capabilities of Andy Mutibi. I do. Because I've seen his work at the SIU. He's got a great, clean record. I believe in him, and I've heard even people that work around him saying that, he's a man who gets the job done. So I'm choosing to believe that he will make sure that IDEC carries out its mandate the way that is required. without fear or favor, manipulation, getting itself dirty. I want to believe that, particularly with that. If it's not going to be Andrea Johnson, who's at the helm of IDAC, hopefully it will be Andy Mutibi, who's the head of the NPA, to say this institution cannot be manipulated. This institution cannot be used in this way. Of course, we have to wait, though, and see. That's what we have to do. We have to wait and see. I also think it doesn't help that with this PFMA charges against Masemola, we haven't really seen anything like that. That also creates a bit of doubt, where people are thinking, what exactly are you doing here, right? But I do think that an organizer, an institution like IDAC, it helps that it falls under the NPA, because ultimately they will have to report to Andy Mutibi, and there will be responsibility taken at that level. It's also important whenever there's reporting in Parliament, we need to listen closely. These are the times where we must listen closely. When an Andrea Johnson, when an Andy Mutibi, and any other people, when they are called to account in Parliament, those people in particular, we need to listen closely, because their affairs are so important when it comes to our criminal justice system.
Every morning, same taxi, same rush, same noise. And someone wants something. Your time, your attention. At work, in the streets, on my phone. Scammers, strangers, always calling. Now I have to put my phone on flight mode. Yes, silence, control, peace. The choice is not to put your phone on flight mode. Auto-block the noise by upgrading to Truecaller Premium for just R29.99 per month. Truecaller, trust the real ones. Available on the Play Store and the App Store.
Part of the 702 family.
My name is Ephraim Morobela. I'm from Midrand. I'm one of the 702 listeners. What I enjoy is different people's perspectives, as well as presenters who give a different perspective with regard to what is happening all over the world.
Welcome to our 702 family. Let's walk the talk.
Mzansi Ballet proudly presents Heal the World, an inspiring new ballet set to the iconic music of global legend Michael Jackson. Choreographed by South African prima ballerina and award-winning choreographer Angela Revi, in collaboration with renowned Mexican guest dancer and choreographer George Wade, this powerful production celebrates dance as a force for connection, healing, and transformation. It tells a deeply human and emotionally charged story of resilience and self-discovery. Heal the World runs from the 13th of May to the 7th of June at the Pieter Torin Theatre at Monte Cassino. Get your tickets now through web tickets.
Mzansi, the excitement is building. The 130th running of the Hollywood Bets Durban July takes place on Saturday, 4 July. This year's theme, Country Allure, draws from the richness of our land, a celebration of heritage, freedom and style, inspired by our beautiful countryside. It's more than a race. It's where champions are made, stories are written, and greatness is unleashed. World-class horse racing, bold fashion, music, culture, and a day of endless excitement at Hollywood Bets Greyville Racecourse. Get your tickets now at Ticket Pro and release your glamour at the Hollywood Bets Durban July, Africa's greatest horse racing and social event.
Mavis, I wonder if I should sell my car. I'm not sure where to go.
Wanna sell your car, but don't know what to do. You don't have to go far, we come to you. If you're rolling on a 1.5 or a Lacquer 2.2, doesn't matter what you drive, we buy cars once you.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Coming up, we're going to be speaking to Songezo Zibi, Scopa Chair, and that's on calls to scrap local government's role in collecting traffic fines. We're also going to have a conversation around President Cyril Ramaphosa seeking urgent interdicts to halt impeachment processes. And that conversation is going to be had with Advocate Mudidima Manya. More on that after the news.
This is EWN.
Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. The legal team of political fixer Brian Makozi has accused the state of bringing trumped-up charges against him. Makozi is appearing in the Johannesburg Magistrates Court today. He was arrested on Friday, shortly after appearing at the Matlanga Commission of Inquiry, which has been investigating alleged police corruption. He is charged with defeating the ends of justice. The state accuses him of staging his own assassination attempt in Vosloorus last year. Makozi's lawyer, William Sekhaja.
Over the weekend, you were very confident that he's innocent and these are just trumped up charges. Do you still hold this position?
The position is still the same, yes.
The additional charges that he might be faced, are you aware of them? What are they and what's your position on that?
We are aware of the charges. They are there in the J50. We have noticed the J50. We read it. It is in his possession. And obviously we don't have the facts behind those particular charges. So we will wait until we actually have the copies of the docket.
Former Umzimkhulu local municipal manager Stanley Skhosana will today return to court for the murder of ANC politician Sindiso Makaqqa. Makaqqa, who was a councillor at the municipality during Skhosana's tenure, was killed in 2017. Skhosana was arrested by the Political Killings Task Team in July last year after being implicated by hitman Busiso Ngwenya. Nhlanhla Mabaso reports from KZN.
The Pietermaritzburg High Court will today hear trial proceedings of the case of slain ANC politician Sindiso Makaqqa, killed back in 2017. Makaqqa was shot execution style while in his vehicle with his colleagues Nontsikelelo Mafa and Jabulile Msiya, who is the current mayor of Umzimkhulu local municipality. It is the state's case that Makaqqa was killed for challenging alleged corruption that was happening in the municipality during Mluleki Ndobe and Stanley Skhosana's tenure as mayor and municipal manager. Lead prosecutor in the case, Advocate Lawrence Tsaba.
At long last, we have evidence linking the mastermind, unfortunately the other one is deceased, to the killing of this young man. We have managed to put Mr. Skhosana to answer to the charges of the overwhelming evidence that we have against him.
The case is also part of the 121 controversial dockets of the Political Killings Task Team. Nhlanhla Mabaso, Eyewitness News, Pietermaritzburg.
In the Western Cape, presiding Judge Robert Henney has warned delays in the trial of alleged underworld figure Nafis Modak will no longer be tolerated after a key witness backed out of testifying. A Goodwood prison inmate who cannot be named was set to corroborate evidence in the murder of the police's anti-gangs unit head, Charles Kinnear. Modak, who is on trial with 14 others, faces more than 120 charges, including Kinnear's killing 6 years ago. Carlo Peterson reports.
The inmate was expected to support testimony from IPA Deputy Provincial Head for the Western Cape, Mario September, who previously told the court the prisoner identified the alleged shooter as a member of Ralph Stanfield's 28th gang. However, the witness refused to testify, saying he feared for his safety and that of his family. Judge Robert Henney agreed to temporarily excuse the witness and recall September.
And once again, I must stand down, wait for you. And this is an abuse. And I'm warning you, this is not going to happen again.
The trial continues today, with Henney set to decide whether to close Modak's case. Carlo Peterson, Eyewitness News.
And finance chiefs from the G7 industrialized nations will gather in Paris for 2 days from today on talks aimed at forging a united front as the Middle East war roils economic prospects worldwide. France, which currently chairs the rotating presidency of the Group of Seven, faces the tricky task of keeping dialogue open as trade feuds spurred by U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff blitz compound geopolitical tensions. Reducing reliance on China's vast holdings of rare earths, crucial for the AI boom that has underpinned economic growth in recent years, is also at the top of the agenda. Gold is trading at $4,543.41 an ounce. The rand is at 16.70 to the dollar, 22.29 to the pound, 19.43 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $111.16 a barrel.
In the traffic, be aware of faulty traffic lights in Amalgam on Main Reef and Press Street, in Bramley at the M1 North and Collet, as well as in Edenvale at the N3 North and Modderfontein.
A partly cloudy day in store for Gauteng. The temperatures will peak at highs of 20 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour: the legal team of political fixer Brian Makozi has accused the state of bringing trumped-up charges against him.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
On Sunday, 26 July, 7:02, Josie My Josie Walk the Talk unites us all in the iconic Joburg CBD.
7:02
Walk the Talk. Abize bonke. Enter now on primemediaplus.com.
7:02
Live
on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856
92.7
and 106 FM. Let's walk the talk.
It's 6 minutes past 10. Welcome back. This is the Clement Manyathela Show. My name is Modise. I'm in for Clement this morning. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for weighing in on the open line. So many of your voice notes still coming in, and I really appreciate the contributions that you're making. Of course, that conversation around Vusmuzi Cat Matala and that plea deal, I think, dominating the conversation, and it's a story that you should be keeping a close eye on. What would this plea deal even look like? Hopefully we'll know if a deal has been struck. All right. Over the next hour, we're going to be taking a look at some of our main stories that have been making headlines. A story that caught my attention is one around calls to scrap local government's role in collecting traffic fines. Billions have been paid, written off. That's the term. Written off. Billions in unpaid fines have been written off for municipalities, particularly in Tshwane as well as in Ekurhuleni. And a conversation is being had about Gauteng Metro's calling on the provincial and national departments to pay municipalities fairly or deploy their own officers and systems to handle traffic enforcement and collections. We're going to be speaking to Scopa Chair Songezo Zibi in just a bit. And then a little later, we want to have a conversation around the legal process that's now going to be following regarding President Cyril Ramaphosa and that parliamentary process. Of course, we know that he's taking that Section 89 panel report on review. But according to Weekend reports, he's taking it a step further and he wants to interdict the entire parliamentary process. We have a legal analyst who's going to be joining us for that conversation to help us make sense of it all. Get in touch with us to weigh in. The number to dial is 011 883 0702. Alternatively, send me a WhatsApp on 072 702 1702 or get in touch with me on X. My handle is at @Mozo_Modise.
Let's walk the talk.
7:02.
So Gauteng metros have racked up billions in unpaid traffic fines, and now a whole lot of it has been written off as irrecoverable. And that has shone the spotlight on the role in fine collection. While metros lead the collection drive for fines, it's the provincial government that gets to keep the lion's share. In fact, the numbers, they seem to be about 80% that goes to the provincial government and 20% stays with the cities or with the metros. And I think the conversation now is around whether there is a real incentive for the metros to continue with this function if they are getting so little. There's also a conversation around changing those numbers, with 40% being proposed as the amount that goes to the municipalities. The metros are arguing that they received only a small share of the collections despite being responsible. And I think many of us have seen how the metros are responsible for the function more than the provincial police. You would see a JMPD, EMPD bus there with the collection drive. It's one that many people will avoid because they know that they are in the red. But what does this even look like? And what the conversation that we're having about it today is the role that the metros really must carry now, but also how did we get into a position where 80% is going to the province? For that conversation, we speak to Songezo Zibi, Scopa Chairperson, who's on the line. Songezo, thank you so much for your time. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Ahmed. Thanks very much for having me on.
I think my initial question really, when I read about this, is how did we end up in this position where, the metros are basically leading this function, where they are doing the collection, but the provincial government is who takes the lion's share of the collected amounts?
The municipalities are the agent that processes all license applications. Whether it is to renew your car license or it is your driving license. So typically you'll deal with your local police. It's also the same authorities, that is the Metro Police or the local traffic police and so on, that administer the fines, whether it is speed cameras and so on. Because remember, the speed limit on urban roads and so on is determined by the municipalities within the national framework. So if there's an infringement at a local level, it falls also within the bylaws of that municipality, because what is 60 km per hour in Durban may not be 60 km per hour in Joburg, at least in as far as certain areas are concerned. So the local authorities must get involved. What appears to be a problem is that the collection is not seamless, and a significant amount of these fines end up getting written off.
And it seems to me that municipalities are being burdened here with an unfunded mandate, because they're doing the work, but really the incentive is close to nothing. I mean, if, for example, there's 100 Rand fine and the municipality spends 50 Rand to collect this money, but they only get 20 Rand from that, it's loss making, it seems to me.
Not necessarily. So, not necessarily, because the working out the cost is up to that authority, because remember the traffic police to enforce, in fact the law enforcement to enforce bylaws would have been employed in any event. So in other words, if somebody is littering, if somebody is putting up a billboard they shouldn't, in a place that they shouldn't, etc., etc. That's all the role of the local police, which is bylaw enforcement. So it doesn't mean that the personnel exist solely to issue traffic fines and then to collect them. So it does make sense for the local authorities to be paid by the provincial government through the revenue collected for the purpose of doing the rest of the work. What is a problem here, what appears to be a problem, is the system of collection. For example, the fines have to be sent by mail to the recipient. The post office no longer functions well, which means a lot of those people simply will not get the fines because they will not get delivered to them, the notification of the infringement, that they will not get it delivered. If it has not been delivered, it is difficult not to write it off later on, because somebody may claim that, well, I didn't know that I had an infringement at all. So in some instances, the law needs to change, because the ARTO Act says it must be delivered in paper.
Yeah. And who's dropping the ball here? Is it a challenge with the ARTO system? Is that where the problem lies?
No, I think it's in the coordination between the city and the ARTO system. So there's lots of, there appears to us to be lots of weakness, several weaknesses in the system. For instance, I think it should be possible for people to be notified by SMS, and that should suffice, that you've got a fine pending, firstly. Secondly, there must, as a condition of the arrangement being in place, be a method of electronic collection of those fines. In other words, somebody can go onto a website or an app and pay the fine upon receiving a notice of the infringement. That does not appear to be in place. And thirdly, the authorities also need to be clear about how much of their total human resources and time is to be dedicated to collecting fines. For instance, the city of Johannesburg, through the Joburg Metro, dedicates an inordinate amount of human resources on blocking Allendale Road, Olifantsfontein, and so on, to collect fines in order to collect their share of the revenue that gets collected. And the traffic police usually try and incentivize people with discounts and so on. I don't know if that's what you want cops to be doing. So the whole system appears to need an overhaul from our perspective, because what's clear is that a lot of this potential revenue ends up getting written off.
Would the contested demerit system be an answer to this problem?
No, I mean, it's not on its own an issue, but here's the problem. If the law requires you to deliver something on a piece of paper to somebody who's been fined, it creates lots of problems. For example, cities like Ekurhuleni, Johannesburg, and Tshwane have lots of people who are in transit who don't actually live in Tshwane. They live in other provinces and so on, which means the job of finding an address for that person and having an infringement notice delivered to them is incredibly difficult. However, if the system is electronic and there's access to the person's cell phone number and email address and so on, and they get a notice, and if it's delivered, it's deemed to have been sent, it's a different story altogether. So the system needs looking at and the different type of implementation, and if the law must be changed, then it should be.
And then just going back to the conversation around the proportions, the fact that the municipalities lead the collection of these fines, but they only get a small portion of it. Of course, there's been a drive and calls, particularly by the mayor of Tshwane, Nasipi Moya, to say they want to see those numbers changed. Is that something that could be on the cards, where the proportions could be shifted? They're calling for about 40% staying with the local municipalities.
Well, that is a job for the Portfolio Committee on Transport and the relevant authorities to determine. I think from the perspective of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, what is important is that the metros and other municipalities are not left with a net loss or net expense while doing work for another government agency. And so the question that we would want to know is whether, given the low collection rates that we are seeing, are the metros therefore adequately compensated for the amount of time and other resources they put in place in order to collect the fines. So the city of Johannesburg places roadblocks all over the show, while, for instance, the city of Tshwane doesn't, for instance. And it may be that they have determined that it simply costs too much to try and collect money that they're never going to receive anyway. So that's why there is a level of standardization that is necessary here in order to make sure that municipalities are adequately compensated.
And do we know what that looks like in the near future? I mean, we know that the ARTO system is still being rolled out. Is that what it's going to take for now, or are there more systems that have been lined up to fix this?
No, I must confess, I'm not really aware, and it doesn't mean this is not happening. The mandate of our committee is to look at the financial affairs of government entities, and this came to our attention because we saw a line in their financial statements where there's significant potential revenue that could have accrued to them, and it's not. And it's important that we ask questions about that. But Parliament's committees work together, and the next step in this instance is for the Standing Committee on Public Accounts through myself to work with the Portfolio Committee on Transport to take this matter forward. But the Portfolio Committee on Transport would be the lead in that instance.
All right, let's leave it there. That's Scopa Chair Songezo Zibi on the line. They're talking to us about this. I mean, it's a matter really for me that boggles the mind, and I understand how the municipalities feel. The fact that they are leading this process. You only really see a JMPD, EMPD, TMPD van and roadblock on the roads mostly. And I'm not saying Gauteng Traffic Police doesn't do this, but you would mostly see the local municipalities leading the collection process. But why are they the ones to be making less from this? Why is it that they are not, why? I mean, the share, 80% goes to the province and 20% stays with the local municipality. And I'm not sure that there is an incentive here for the municipalities then if they're not taking this, especially if the collection is so low, the collection rate is low. So already there's this money that's being spent towards the collection of this. Already they know that they're going to be getting the least in terms of the proportions and the share. But also, they're not even sure if they'll be getting anything from this because the collection systems are so poor. It's definitely a story to keep our eye on. I mean, I saw that number. I think Ekurhuleni wrote off 2.7 billion rand in unpaid fines. And I really wanted to speak to the Ekurhuleni MMC for Finance about how much they put into collecting. Because something says to me they're spending a lot more money to try and collect, but they're not getting any of it back. And the sending out of these letters, I'm sure many of you, I have received a letter in my mail, the sending out of these letters, setting up a roadblock, the manpower there, the systems there, that doesn't come cheap. And truly, there should be a return for the cities, and there seems not to be that. So it's definitely a story to keep our eye on. We were also hoping to get Nasipi Moya, who is the mayor of Tshwane. She's been leading this quite a bit. She's the one that's been calling for the 40% to be the amount that stays with the municipalities as a way to almost, compensate them for the work that they are doing in collecting traffic fines. I know for many of you, some of you are very glad that these traffic fines have been written off. However, I do think that there is a ripple effect, particularly for the city from a revenue perspective and what that means for services that are being delivered.
702 Drive with John Perlman.
On our show, we cover the news, but we try to do it in a slightly different way. If there's breaking news, we give you the facts, but we're always looking for somebody who can explain to us why something is happening, and we apply that thinking to everything we do. That, yes, you want to know the what, but crucially, you want to know the why, and most important of all, you want to know how it might be fixed. The wonderful thing is we don't have one kind of listener who listens to our show. I think the kind of listeners we have are people who want to be heard, but they definitely listen very, very carefully. Once they've made up their mind, they come in very, very quickly, very sharp, very focused, and if they're not happy with the answer, you're going to find out very, very soon. And it's great because it keeps us interested and it keeps us on our toes. We're putting the show together, but thank goodness the listeners are keeping us accountable, and that's good for everyone.
702 Drive with John Perlman, weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m.
The world's best male and female paddle players are coming to South Africa. The historic Premier Paddle Pretoria P1 will be at Sunbet Arena Times Square from 26 July to the 2nd of August. Expect world-class action, unbelievable energy, premium hospitality, and an atmosphere unlike anything South African sport has seen before. This is Africa's biggest paddle tournament ever, and tickets are selling fast. Don't miss your chance to witness the sport's biggest stars in South Africa. Get your tickets now at primemediaplus.com.
We asked rugby legend Francois Steyn what he thinks of the all-new Toyota BZ4X. France, would you say the BZ4X is a rugged all-wheel drive SUV?
Yeah.
Cool. Was the acceleration and handling good?
Yeah.
All right. So you think the BZ4X can handle South Africa?
Well,
there you have it. The all-new Toyota BZ4X, an all-wheel drive battery electric SUV made to handle South Africa. The BZ4X. It just got real.
Ready to make a real impact in just 90 minutes? On the 28th of May, Spur Steak Ranches and Rise Against Hunger are joining forces for World Hunger Day to pack thousands of meals for young children across South Africa. And we need you. Grab a friend, grab a shift, 10 a.m., 12 p.m. or 2 p.m. and come help us pack nutritious meals at the Spur head office in Century City. Sign up now via the Spur Facebook page or visit the Rise Against Hunger website. Be a hunger hero. Volunteer today.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable. You receive up to 745,000 rand worth of legal services per year. Our range of plans include cover for you, your spouse, children, and extended family. Plans include cover for civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Whether it's protection orders, gender-based violence, uncontested divorce, or poor service, your Clientele Legal lawyer will be there to assist you. Our services are convenient. Simply pick up the phone and call your lawyer or send us an email and we'll get back to you. All plans include a bail benefit of up to 5,000 rand and we'll go to the police station and pay it for you. Plus, Clientele Legal offers you 24-hour telephonic legal advice. SMS Legal to 48721. That's legal to 48721. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
There's so much health information out there, but how do you know what to trust? Catch the Clement Manyathela Show tomorrow at 9 a.m. for Health Matters by Plea Africa, where we'll be unpacking important health conversations designed to help you better understand your body and well-being. Health Matters by Plea Africa is a trusted hub bringing you expert-led health conversations that you can trust. Then head to the Prime Media Plus app or primemediaplus.com, scroll to Prime Media Highlights and watch the latest Health Matters video featuring leading experts and thought-provoking conversations.
Let's walk the talk.
702.
Welcome back. I want to take a call from Silo in Limpopo. Good morning. You want to weigh in on the traffic fine issue?
Yes, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. Silo, go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, man. I would like to... actually, I think we should convert the law that that allows people to pay the fines in installments, so that that could maybe encourage the whole nation to pay their fines.
Yeah. So be able to pay the fine with installments.
Yes, remember, some of the people, they don't even afford to pay those fines.
Yeah.
But maybe, perhaps in installments, a person could be able to pay that in half or in smaller amounts.
Look, I do think that sounds like a solution. You know, at least one of the solutions that people can have. But I think also with people with multiple fines already, I think that's when it becomes the problem. Because when there's one fine and it's a 500 rand, 600 rand fine, I don't think people have great problems when it comes to that. It's when they have multiple fines, which is the reality of many motorists on our road, isn't it?
Yes, but as long as we say it's in installment, you know, you might have 5,000 rand, and you have perhaps those multiple fines that accumulated up to that 5,000. You can't take your last 5,000 and pay traffic fines.
Yeah.
Whereas you still have other errands to deal with. So it will be much better to say, okay, let's pay an installment. They give you 12 months. You know, okay, I pay you 1,000 per month or 500 rand or so on. Then that could help a lot.
Salone Limpopo, thank you so much for your call. Yeah, I mean, listen, anything to get people to pay. Hey, I think for me that's really it. And I mean, you know, I don't think there's enough education around there. I mean, I didn't even know for the longest time that if you pay within 30 days, I believe, then you get a discount. All of that information, that's information that's necessary out there that we should be sharing so that people can actually feel the need to pay for their fines. I want to move to the story in the Johannesburg Magistrates Court. Yes, it's playing out in the Magistrates Court. Brown Makozi made his appearance there after his arrest on Friday. You may remember that he appeared at the Madlanga Commission, and then immediately after that, about an hour or two later, he was arrested. Thabiso Koba, the EWN reporter who's been covering that story, joins us now on the line. Thabiso, good morning. Thank you so much for your time. Just tell us what's been happening in court today. I see the matter's been postponed.
Good afternoon, Khomoto. Good morning. Yes, as you said, the matter has been postponed. It was a pretty brief appearance. As you can imagine, it was Brown Makgozi's first appearance in court since he got arrested on Friday. He's charged with defeating the ends of justice, and this matter relates to the police or the state are accusing him of staging his own assassination attempt. You remember, Khomoto, that in November last year, the police and also us in the media, we responded to reports of Makgozi saying that there was an assassination attempt on his life. And I remember that when we got there, there was this red Chevrolet that was bullet-ridden. However, there were also some questions around whether about the status of the car, considering that the car didn't have a license disc and it looked unroadworthy and that the tires were worn out. However, it was this car that was bullets-ridden. Makgozi later gave a statement to police saying that, there was an assassination attempt on his life. But now the police are saying, Khomoto, that they believe that Makgozi staged this, his own attempt, his assassination attempt, and that obviously he wasted the police's time. As we know, that, that is obviously a crime and that's what he's been charged with. Now, the matter in court is that there has been an issue around the confirmation of his address. We know that Makgozi is from Mahikeng in the northwest, so the police have struggled to confirm where he does stay, as that's obviously it's very important before someone is released on bail. Now, the matter is postponed to next week, Monday, which unfortunately for Makgozi means he'll be spending a further 7 days behind bars. His lawyers obviously unhappy. They wanted the matter to be postponed till Thursday. However, the state saying that considering that the police still have to go to the northwest and verify his address, they believe that next week, Monday, will be an appropriate time for them to verify the address and have a proper bail application. So where we stand is that Makgozi will be spending another 7 days behind bars and that the matter will return next week, Monday, for a bail application.
And do we know if the state is opposing bail?
At this stage, the state is just waiting to find out what the address is. This is obviously a Schedule 5 offense. Makozi will have to, put in his version of why he should be released on bail. But the state is just waiting to get more information, because it does seem like he wasn't necessarily forthcoming with the address. The state's even making a point saying that if the address had come out earlier, maybe we might be in a position where Makozi would now be a free man. But because there was a bit of dithering around the address and verification of it, then, it presents a complicated case. So we'll just have to find out next week, Monday, whether the states will be opposing that bail application in that front.
All right, Thabiso Koba, EWN reporter, let's leave it there. He's at the court appearance of Brown Makozi. And yeah, this is how things work in court, eh? You need to wait. You seldom see people applying for bail on their first appearance, so I didn't expect him to bring a bail application today. I did expect to find out if the state is going to be opposing bail, but we just have to wait and see. Fiso Zulu standing by with the Eyewitness News headlines. Good morning.
Thanks, Khomotso. Good morning. Political fixer Brown Makozi will have to spend 7 days behind bars after his bail application was set down for next Monday. Makozi made a brief appearance in the Johannesburg Magistrates Court. He faces charges of defeating the ends of justice. Relatives of missing Umphile Sithole are hoping to get answers today when the toddler's grandparents appear in court. The pair, aged 52 and 55, were arrested on Friday and charged with child neglect. 3-year-old Umphile disappeared from her home earlier this month while sleeping next to her grandmother. And the driver of a freight train involved in a fatal collision with a public bus in Bangkok has tested positive for drugs and has been charged with reckless driving. The collision, which happened on Saturday, saw the train crash into the bus that had come to a stop on the railway tracks. The bus burst into flames, killing 8 people and injuring dozens. And those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 11 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Not much happening on the roads at this moment, so in the meantime you can just look out for those faulty traffic lights that might affect you a little bit. In Bramley at the M1 North and Quality Drive, in Fourways at Winnie Mandela and Monte Casino, in Woodmead at Woodmead and Woodlands, and in Midrand traffic lights are also out at Old Pretoria and Olifantsfontein. In the capital city, look out for faulty traffic lights in Danville at Vomhagen and Trans-Oranje Road, in Gasfontein at EC Smart Street and Gasfontein, as well as in Monument Park at the R21 and Solomon Mahlangu Drive. If you do come across any other traffic, please do send us a WhatsApp voice note on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app. The Midday Report with Mandy Wiener.
The Midday Report at its heart is a current affairs show, but it really is a show about everything you need to know about and everything you didn't know you needed to know about. Our listener is sharp, plugged in, curious, has developed opinions, but is still open to learning new things. My favorite part is how witty, sharp, and funny our listener is. What we cover every day is breaking news, current affairs, politics, the courts, global developments, science, education, popular culture, sports, books, and of course, good things too. I like to think of it as a lunchbox with a little bit of everything. What I love about 702 Land is that it is full of energy. There's always something happening, a developing story to follow. But it's not parochial. The 702 family cares about what is happening in the world around them and how we plug into that.
The Midday Report with Mandy Wiener. Weekdays from 12 to 1 p.m.
If your car hire company was becoming too expensive, you'd switch, right? So why pay more for car insurance? Switching to Outsurance saved 40-year-old Rafiq an unbelievable 899 Rand on his 2017 Navara 4x4. Get a quote now. And if Outsurance can't save your money, ask for 500 Rand or 1,500 Rand if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Do it now. SMS out to 45142. That's out to 45142. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's and information online.
Brush, stroke, paint, color, protect, and admire. From roof paint to exterior textures and interior silk, Warrior Paints has it all. The product range and stylish colors are amazing. And what's more, Warrior Paints has crushed prices for incredible savings. Enjoy that good old-fashioned personal service you deserve. For price, quality, variety and service, Warrior Paints is street ahead. Warrior Paints, affordable, lasting, luxury.
Out there? Why would you want to go out there? People are out there. People with their phones on speaker are out there. Strangers are out there. And worse, people you know but whose names you can't remember are out there. Winter living is designed for staying in, especially with Decofurn's red-hot markdowns on our coziest furniture like armchairs and couches. Plus, you never have to go out there with loads of stock and speedy delivery now at decofurnsa.co.za.
Joburg is more than just a city. It's an energy, a pulse, and a feeling connecting everybody. The heart of Mzansi.
It's Joburg.
In celebration of this, 702 has partnered with Jozi My Jozi, and we're calling on you to walk through the city center with us.
Walk the talk.
In the 702 Jozi My Jozi Walk the Talk. Babize bonke. On Sunday, 26 July, we're going to the iconic Joburg CBD, the home of dream creators and operators, where we dominate and history make. So join us and be a part of something special.
I'm ready to rock this book.
Because when Joburg walks together, extraordinary things happen. Enter now on primemediaplus.com and get ready for 702 Jozi My Jozi Walk the Talk this July, hosted by the City of Johannesburg. Walk with the people, for the people, for our Jozi. Babize bonke. Enter Walk the Talk now on primemediaplus.com.
702
Let's walk the talk on 92.7
and 106 FM.
23 minutes before 11 right here on the Clement Manyathela Show. Good morning. My name is Komatso Modise. I'm in for Clem this morning. Thank you so much for tuning in. I want to shift our focus to this story now. So we know that President Cyril Ramaphosa is taking the Section 89 panel report on review. That's one part of the legal process that is currently underway. We understand that he's going to be filing papers. I don't believe he's filed them yet, and they are likely to go to the Western Cape High Court. But then there's a second part, a second legal process that must follow. There are reports from this weekend that the president wants to interdict the entire parliamentary process pending the outcome of the review. What are the issues at play here, and what would the courts have to consider if an application of this kind were to come before them? For that conversation, we have Mudidima Manya, who's the legal expert, and he joins us now on the line. Mudidima, thank you so much for your time. I want to start with what's been happening just in this Phala report saga since the judgment from the Constitutional Court, because initially we understood, once the president announced on Monday, that he's going to be taking the report on review. But we then learned that this does not mean that it's going to stay the entire parliamentary process. Parliament must still continue with its work. Is that the case?
Yes, good morning, and good morning to your listeners. It is correct. A review process is generally a process which is done in the normal course. The normal course means, you just follow the rules. If the rules say something must happen in 10 days, you do that in 10 days, 15 days. This one files papers, this one files a record. And when everything else is ready, you then apply for a trial date, which could be anything between a year to 2 years. But then in between, something can happen, which means you may be forced to take steps to prevent that from happening, which will undermine the whole process. So I think the issue of the interdict comes within that context.
And I've been asking, how long would a review process take, Mudidima? Because I do think that this, to me at least, sounds like this is an urgent matter, but I don't think it's the type of matter that would be on the urgent court roll. It would be dealt with, though, with expediency, wouldn't it?
Yes, look, my own view is that in the interest of everyone, the president, parliament, and whoever political parties, they should be agreeing on how the decision of the president to review is to be processed in court, because they can all agree that, look, let's deal with it on a preferential basis and get it out of the way, whatever the outcome is. But obviously, as you can see, the level of acrimony that even people who took their own institution to court seem to think the president must not exercise his rights and go to court. So the ideal position for me would be for all the parties to agree that let's have the review, but let's expedite it so that we can get it out of the way.
Yeah. And is there a logic, legal or otherwise, to have Parliament begin with its impeachment committee process, have the hearings, have interviews, appoint investigators, while the court is still dealing with the review process? Is there any logic to that?
Well, it's probably less of a logic issue to more of a practicality issue. And it might just defeat the very purpose of what Parliament seeks to achieve. Let's assume, the review is dealt with, say, within 5 months. By that time, Parliament had impeached the president. And the court says, but they review and set aside the report. It simply means that Parliament would have acted on something that has now been found to be, non-existent, And what precedent does it lay? Because I think on both sides, there are interests. There's an interest of stability in terms of the office of the president. There's an interest of accountability on the side of the National Assembly towards the president. But the logic of it is that Parliament as an institution should defer and allow the court process to take place because I'm not sure what is really urgent to have this matter dealt with in the speed with which some of the political parties are saying. And I understand that it's important that a decision be made. But whether you just want to go roughshod and at the end of your process you find that you have actually wasted time, you have wasted public resources is another matter.
Well, I think that some political parties may argue that you don't want an embattled president at the helm, someone who may or may not be found to have acted unlawfully in terms of the Constitution. But maybe my question would be, on what legal grounds would Ramaphosa then be successful with this interdict application?
Well, the rules of court provide for two situations. They provide for the normal situation, which has explained, which has got your 10 days, 15 days. Then it also makes provision for matters that could jump the queue, which we call urgent applications. They've got their own test. I mean, for instance, you need to satisfy the court that you will not have any other remedy in the ordinary course if your matter was to follow the normal process, So you have to convince the court. So it's not there for the taking. You have to make out the case. And it's independent of the review. So if the court finds that the application is not urgent, it doesn't constitute a ruling on the merits of the review. At that stage, you're not considering the review. You're considering whether the requirements to grant an interdict. Now, there are two things. There are requirements to have an interdict, and there are requirements to have a matter before court on an urgent basis.
Yeah. We are speaking about this next step that the president is said to be taking. Of course, it's been reported by the Sunday papers that he's going to be interdicting the entire parliamentary process. It's a step further than just taking the report, the Section 89 panel report on review. I'm taking your calls on 011-883-0702 or send me a WhatsApp on 072-702-1702. Do you think that the president should take the step of interdicting this parliamentary process? I mean, at the top of my mind also are the finances, Mudidima, which I believe the court might have to consider. The costs of having a committee set up, investigators, you would need maybe senior counsel for something like this because of the seriousness. Then, of course, there's the cost of having more lawyers, more counsel part of this. There's also the costs of the investigators, as I said. Is this something that the courts would have to consider, that this might be seen as irreparable harm, so to speak?
No. The irreparable harm will be with regard to the person who brings the application, which is the president. And he would have to demonstrate that, he will suffer irreparable harm, not Parliament. Of course, in a normal situation, you would expect such considerations to form part of the reasoning of the court, because these are public funds. This is about the exercise of constitutional power. it's got very serious implications, as I say, because, as I say, you could easily impeach the president, and later on the court finds that the report is a nullity. Then you would have impeached the president based on something that is now found to be a nullity. So there are those type of considerations that not only the court, but Parliament and the National Assembly itself should make.
And of course, I think the question really is also around precedent setting. You know, the fact that we could see in the future when other members of parliament are facing processes, that they can just run to the courts to tie the hands of parliament, so to speak, not to take action against them. Is that a risk?
Well, look, we're already there. I mean, this very application was brought not by me and you. It was brought by members of parliament or political parties represented in parliament. And it came after the process did not produce what they wanted. We do have a number of people in parliament who are facing criminal charges. And the question is, why should they not be taken to task? You will recall that I think the Ethics Committee of Parliament has in the past taken action against some members of parliament for their wayward behavior. Some of them went to court to have to challenge the outcome. So parliament members of parliament are actually the biggest clients at the moment because they are very busy in the courts. I'm sure they could give us space to deal with issues of citizens. But it also suggests that there seems to be some level of dysfunctionality because you would expect that the National Assembly should be able to resolve its issues within its own processes and rules. You expect the executive to do the same. You expect the judiciary to do the same, so that we have some bit of orderliness. But as matters stand, as you know, most of the complaints are sent by members of parliament to the public protector. If she makes a finding they don't like, then she gets insulted, as you know. So we have set this precedent of removing presidents. Now we have set a precedent of vilifying offices like the public protector, whether we agree or disagree. So it leads to a measure of dysfunctionality in the system.
And I suppose then, you know, we ask how long? How long is this going to take? Because I don't see this ending in the next few months, unless, of course, as you say, this is placed on the urgent court roll.
Yeah, look, even if it's placed on the urgent court roll, the question is whether the court will find it to be urgent, because the court might not find it to be urgent either. But I'm also interested to know, even if, let's assume the court doesn't find it urgent, the question is how quickly will the impeachment process take place? But remember, the final product in this is a vote in the National Assembly. So let's assume, for whatever reason, rational or irrational, there's a vote against the impeachment. You can actually expect that somebody's probably going to go to court and say, well, they voted with their stomachs instead of their heads. So it might actually just not end.
Yes.
Similarly, if the president were to wake up tomorrow and say, listen, I don't need all these things and then let me tender my resignation and leave, it's not going to end the whole fight in Parliament, by the way.
Yes, because so he can't just resign, right? That's the idea.
He can resign. He's got a right to resign in terms of the Constitution.
Yes.
He can resign any minute.
But you're saying that wouldn't end the entire process?
Well, I'm saying, you already hear people saying even if he resigns,
yes,
we will still. But you see, that is, nonsense, because you can't impeach somebody who's not a president.
Yes, so I was...
Once the president has resigned, he's no longer president, so you can't impeach him. What you can probably do is to conduct some other investigation into this thing. And if you need him as a witness, you can subpoena him as a witness. But you can't say to me that a person who has resigned as an office bearer can still face the same consequences of that office bearer.
In fact, I'm remembering the words of Julius Malema speaking outside the Constitutional Court last week to say that they won't allow him to resign. The idea that they were saying is even if he were to resign, the Phala matter won't go away. And I suppose the steps that they can take are what? Are the legal steps for the courts to make some sort of finding on Phala against the president?
Well, look, it depends on whether whatever you want thereafter, if the president resigns, will have any practical meaning. The courts don't make orders which have no practical effect. It's a principle of law, So the court is not going to come and say, we find the president committed misconduct when he's got nothing to do with anything. It means nothing. Remember, the most severe sanction in the current circumstances is to impeach the president. So if he is no longer president or he is impeached, what other sanction can we impose on him?
Mudidima, could we end up with this matter back in the Constitutional Court? Of course, what would be before the Constitutional Court would be different. It would no longer be how Parliament dealt with the vote, but ultimately the president could escalate his review of this report all the way to the apex court. Could we end up with this?
Yes, we could end up with this. But remember, I think he started in the Constitutional Court, and the Constitutional Court said he must start in the High Court.
Yes.
And I think he went to the High Court. That's when the National Assembly decided against the impeachment, and therefore there was no value in the review, and he abandoned it. And I think he's saying because the process of the judgment of the Constitutional Court has resuscitated the life of the process, then he's got to act. And I think that's logical. But you can understand that let's assume he gets an interdict, and then the review goes ahead, and the court finds and sets aside the report. It's likely that somebody will say, I'm going to appeal, and vice versa. He may say if the court rules against him in the review, he might say, I'm appealing. So, as I say, judging by the extent, the appetite that members of Parliament have of going to court and complaining about each other, you will not be misplaced to think it can end up in the Constitutional Court.
Yeah. And what would you say to the argument that's made around the loss of benefits, that even if the president were to resign, the idea of getting him impeached, so to speak, or sanctioned, so to speak, would be that he loses all his benefits as the president?
No, the resignation doesn't result in the loss of benefits. And I think former President Zuma, former President Mbeki continue to enjoy the benefits. They resigned from office. You only lose those benefits if you are found guilty of serious offenses and or you are impeached.
And that's what I'm saying, that political parties may follow through that legal process just for him to lose his benefits and not keep his benefits by evading through resignation.
Yeah, well, look, I can tell you maybe that would have an effect on me if I was president, but I don't know whether it will affect the President Ramaphosa. We all know he's a wealthy person. So, I mean, he donates already half of his salary to the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund. So it can tell you that he doesn't depend on the government salary. Of course, there's a prestige issue, but he already had a prestige as a big businessman before he became president. So some of the things are just a bit childish in my view.
Yeah.
I mean, if President Ramaphosa is impeached for serious violations of the Constitution, I would fully support that. But if you want to impeach him because you think he will not have blue lights, he can hire his own VIP protection. I mean, there are private companies that offer that.
Mudidima Manya, legal expert, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your analysis.
Thank you very much.
All right, then. Speaking there on this process that it's being reported that the president will now take on, he wants to take go a step further than just taking the report on review. He's now taking that step of interdicting Parliament from continuing with its work, right? Because now we know that the report is before Parliament. The impeachment committee has been set up. We are expecting the announcement of the 31 names this week. But according to weekend reports, the president wants to stop that process in its tracks. And then we're going to be seeing the review process carry on. That's what he's trying to do here. I do see many of your voice notes coming in. In fact, maybe let's take some.
I would say the main challenge with the Cyril Ramaphosa thing is the presidency is not a normal office, isn't it? So it's one of those things. It's like, is it law that must be done and seen to be done? In this instance, that office must seem not to have a blemish. And if it means one or two people bite the dust accidentally, then so be that. And maybe this is the reason why even something like a impeachment of the president requires 2/3 majority. That's actually how serious the issue must be. So I think the Constitution is already working and considered those eventualities. Smart planning, I would say.
Hamotso, this is Heiner from Florida. What irritates me about this whole story with the hidden money and the president that faces impeachment matters, it has been an ordinary person in this country, they would have been in jail. Now because it's the president, now it is a different story. I don't think so. I can't wait for the ANC to die out.
Listen, it is a view that many people have, right? That he's being treated, he's getting special or preferential treatment. Look, I do think the fact that the Constitutional Court has made the ruling and the finding that it's made is important for our democracy. And I think that it's important for the courts and what things appear to be, because there has been a perception that lingers that the president is being shielded by the court, that he's being protected. But that judgment by the Constitutional Court is very clear. I think it sets the tone and says that nobody is above the law. I do think the president, though, will exhaust all his legal avenues. I do think that he'll be exhausting all his legal avenues, particularly in this process. Now, some may say that this is him trying to tie Parliament's hands and keep Parliament from doing its work, and whether this is being done in good faith, whether this is about getting to the bottom of what exactly happened, and of course, opening this panel report and seeing whether it's legally sound. But others do feel if you have nothing to hide, allow the parliamentary process to go ahead. If the Section 89 report, panel report, is flawed legally, then number one, your review process will reveal that. But number two, what will happen is that the inquiry will reveal that as well. That's the other idea and the other school, I should say, of thought. Either way, I do think that this process is going ahead, and I think we need to keep a close eye on the courts, particularly the Western Cape High Court, which is likely to deal with the review matter once it's been brought to court.
The Aubrey Masangu Show on 702.
I cover on my show issues of advisory, whether it is legal matters, whether it is financial matters. I cover day-to-day issues as far as current affairs are concerned. I cover the politics of the day and how we as South Africans are interpreting them. My listener is a curious 702 lander. They want to know what are the backstories, the stories behind what we are hearing on the airwaves. They want to understand what drives the different issues that have us talking. What I love about the 702 family and 702 land is the fact that we have 702 landers who are responsive, who are present, who care about their communities, and who want to know how they can be a part of the process of making our areas better, but also our country better. And that for me is a great privilege. I am totally indebted to the providence out there to be talking to these people on a daily basis.
The Aubrey Masangu Show, weekdays from 8 to midnight.
There's something about leaving the corporate world. It feels like a fresh start, new routine, new pace, new you. You're finally free. But some of you hold on to those office reminders, like that blazer still sitting in your wardrobe. The street store is inviting you to turn that into something meaningful by donating it to someone who truly needs it, because letting it go looks good on you. Donate to the street store before the 22nd of May. Visit thestreetstore.org for more.
Moving to a bigger office space can be expensive. Thanks to My Way Business Insurance, I get to save up to 20% on my insurance premiums every month. Plus, I get My Business Assist, which helps me with marketing, legal, and admin services. Saving money while growing my business is a great win for me.
Switch to My Way Business Insurance and save up to 20% on your monthly premiums. Real businesses, real savings. Call us on 0860 646464 today for a quote. My Way is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. Standard rates and T's and C's apply.
Gauteng is currently experiencing high water consumption. To avoid water interruptions, residents are urged to use water sparingly to allow equitable supply. Act now, save water. Every drop counts. This message is brought to you by the Department of Water and Sanitation, Rand Water, Gauteng Provincial Government, City of Johannesburg, City of Tshwane, and City of Ekurhuleni.
Not every change feels like a choice. Some arrive as disruption. Shift Happens with Richard Sutton is a podcast about those moments where life moves first and you have to catch up. When certainty disappears, direction blurs, and everything familiar starts to shift. You'll hear stories from people who faced change, doubt, and pressure and found a way forward. Their stories give us confidence. Living vicariously through their experience gives us hope, and we learn from their journeys. Because what feels like an ending is often the beginning of something else. Shift Happens weekly on primemediaplus.com, the Prime Media Plus app, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Powered by First Light, therapeutics for the modern mind. This is EWN.
Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. Political fixer Makozi will have to spend 7 days behind bars after his bail application was set down for next Monday. Makozi made a brief appearance in the Johannesburg Magistrates Court this morning. He faces charges of defeating the ends of justice for staging his own assassination attempt in Vosloorus last November. Makozi's lawyers wanted the bail application to be set down for this Thursday, but the state says it needs more time to verify his home address. State prosecutor Tami Mpekana.
It must be remembered that the address that is supposed to be verified, it's not within the province. It is outside the province. And for the police officers to move from one province to another province, there are certain logistics.
Relatives of missing Umpiles Tole are hoping to get answers today when the toddler's grandparents appear in court. The pair, aged 52 and 55, were arrested on Friday and charged with child neglect. 2-year-old Mpile disappeared from her home in Gamabulela earlier this month while sleeping next to her grandmother. The child's relatives have gathered outside court in Limpopo. Makozi Malingamnisi is there.
Relations between the Mabuela family, Umpile's paternal relatives, and the Sithole family have deteriorated after the toddler's mother opened a child neglect case against the grandparents. Umpile's mother has since left the Mabuela homestead, saying she fears for her safety. Despite the family tensions, police say the search for the missing toddler continues. Limpopo police spokesperson Malisela Letwaba says investigators continue to follow up on leads as they emerge.
We haven't managed to find Umpile, and that is the main important thing for us for now. But be that as it may, hence we ended up charging the people who has got the responsibility in terms of Child Care Act, who happen to be the grandmother and the grandfather. So we just hope that moving forward, we might have some kind of light at the end of the day.
Umpile's father has been seen outside the court precinct ahead of his parents' appearance before the magistrate. Si Malingamnisi, Eyewitness News in Limpopo.
3 people are today expected to appear in the Middelburg Magistrates Courts in Mpumalanga, and this is in connection with alleged fraud and money laundering of the COVID-19 Temporary Employee Relief Scheme. The main suspect, who is a director of a construction company, allegedly unduly benefited from the scheme administered through the UIF in 2020. The company allegedly claimed more than 26 million rand in UIF benefits for more than 700 ghost employees. Investigations revealed that the funds were channeled into various bank accounts, including those belonging to the company director, his wife and her company, as well as his brother-in-law, allegedly for personal gain. Hawks' spokesperson Mongenseni Nkosi.
Further investigation indicated that the funds were used to acquire various movable and immovable assets. It is further alleged that the brother-in-law played a significant role in recruiting individuals under false promise of employment. Some of the identification particulars used in the claims allegedly belong to former employees of the company.
And the driver of a freight train involved in a fatal collision with a public bus in Bangkok has tested positive for drugs and has been charged with reckless driving. The collision happened on Saturday, so it saw the train crash into a public bus that had come to a stop on railway tracks. The bus burst into flames, killing 8 people and injuring dozens. Initial reports suggest the bus had become stuck on the tracks due to heavy traffic, which prevented the crossing barriers from lowering properly. Both the bus driver and the guard responsible for lowering the barrier, which is done manually, have also been charged. Gold is trading at $4,543.41 an ounce. The rand is at 16.70 to the dollar, 22.29 to the pound, 19.43 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $111.16 a barrel.
In the traffic, look out for faulty traffic lights in Edenvale at the N3 North and Moerfontein, in Rand Park Ridge at the N1 North and Beyersnodie, and in Rand Park at the N1 South and Malibongwe.
A partly cloudy day in store for Gauteng. The temperatures will peak at highs between 20 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour. Political fixer Makozi will have to spend 7 days behind bars after his bail application was set down for next Monday.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
Visit primemediaplus.com to enter 702 Josie My Josie Walk the Talk. Hosted by the City of Johannesburg. Walk with the people, for our Josie.
For Joburg, by Joburg, in Joburg.
Bamise bonke.
702.
Live
On the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7.
and 106 FM. Let's walk the talk.
Welcome back. It's 6 minutes past 11 right here on the Clement Manyathela Show. My name is Makozi. I'm in for Clement this morning. Coming up on the show, we're going to be speaking about family matters. And of course, today we talk about tough love. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Is it helpful or is it hurting? And at what point is it an act of care or control? And how do you know when it's gone too far? We're going to be having that conversation in just a bit. Of course, the TV screens here in studio just keep flashing. There's so much that's, breaking. We've got so much breaking news on the screens. But I must mention this one story. The National Health Act has been declared invalid. The Constitutional Court saying that the health practitioners require state approval to relocate or operate. And it's a matter that's been in the Constitutional Court, one of the two judgments that's been handed down today. The question was, are powers of the Health Minister and Director General sufficiently constrained in issuing certificates of need and in dealing with all other aspects of the scheme? And it was brought by Trade Union Solidarity against the Minister of Health. So this judgment is a win for the Minister and for government. It's a story that you can read more about. All right, I'm looking forward to our conversation around tough love. If you have experience with tough love, you've had to give tough love to a family member, or you had tough love given to you, did it work? Did it feel like it was working at the time? Was it necessary for you to turn a new leaf and to become better? Or did it do more harm? Get in touch with us. The number to dial is 011-883-0702. Alternatively, send me a WhatsApp on 072-702-1702.
702.
Family Matters.
So, love is not always gentle. I know when we speak about love, we think, it's soft and it's gentle and it should feel good. But the reality is, for many South African families, toughness and love have long gone hand in hand. In many of our families, you've had to do something painful for a loved one, hoping that, they will come out on the other side better and they will see your intentions. But where's the line drawn between tough love and emotional harm? Oftentimes, tough love refers to the practice of setting firm boundaries, especially when you feel like you've done it all and there's nothing more that you can do for this person. You withhold comfort. You enforce strict consequences out of a genuine desire to help someone grow with the hope that they will grow. And while it's often well-intentioned, so we mean well when we give tough love, it can cause lasting psychological and emotional damage, particularly in children and young adults. And that's the conversation we're having this morning. I want to hear from you, because I'm sure you may have experienced tough love. You may know what tough love feels like, or you may have been pushed to give tough love. What exactly How did it work out for you and your family? For that conversation, however, we've got Gail Friend, an expert in parent-child relationships. Gail, good morning. Thank you so much for your time.
Good morning. It's lovely to be here, and it's such a good subject to talk about.
It is, especially, I mean, I know so many people, Gail, who feel that they have to give tough love to their people, to their family members, to their young ones. Many people can tell you about young people that have gone astray, and we've done everything that we can, and this is the final solution that we feel. But sometimes tough love can be a little extreme as a concept.
Yes, I totally agree. And I think that we must look at it from a perspective of tough love, not in isolation, because we really want tough love to be together with connection. And it's not something you do when there's a problem. It's something you balance right from the early years. I really believe we've got to really clarify how we see tough love. Because I think as it gets passed through generations, tough love, the perception is different for every person. And it's a case of, as you were saying earlier, is it, how do we set tough love where it's not emotionally damaging to your children? We've got to understand that it's not harsh discipline. It's not emotional disconnect. It's not shaming or making your children wrong. It is about how to set those boundaries about something that you believe is right, as opposed to putting it on your child.
And I suppose we also have to consider this, in the South African context. Sometimes I think it's easy to consider issues like tough love from the perspective of what we may watch online, what we may watch on television series. People saying, throw your child out, and they must go figure it out themselves. In the South African context, throwing your 17, 16, 18, maybe even 20-year-old out isn't always an option, is it?
I don't think it's an option, and I don't see that as being tough love. I see being tough love as actually not abandoning your child, not throwing them out. It's about having those boundaries and loving them through the difficult times. So for me, timing is everything. You want to be able to be firm in the moment and not tolerate any bad behavior, but then being able to have a conversation afterwards about understanding and developing their why and hearing what is on their map as well. So it's a combination of connection and firm boundaries. It's not a once-off, let's throw your kid out. It's about a daily conversation in the way you manage your child one day at a time.
Yeah. And what's the difference between tough love and emotional abuse? Because sometimes the lines are blurred quite a bit, especially when you're frustrated as a parent, as a loved one, when you've done everything, you might do something thinking that it's tough love, but it might really go towards the extreme.
Yes. The difference, I think, is when you can manage your own emotions as a parent. So for me, tough love is being able to say no when it's easier to say yes, and to be able to love your child through the discomfort. So you are not feeling the anger or the judgment towards your child, you are instilling a boundary. Whereas emotional abuse is when you are reacting out of anger, where you're telling them to go away, where you're making them wrong and bad. And that is when you are emotionally abusing them, in a sense where you're projecting the boundary onto them personally.
And is it the correct way to give tough love as a final resort? Because oftentimes we'll try everything. We'll try talking to you, the person will have a conversation as a family. In some instances, I know a family actually that's struggling with a young person who has an addiction problem. And they've tried to speak to him, and they've tried to get him help, tried to take him to rehab, and they've relapsed multiple times. And now the tough love route is the final route for them. But is that the correct way of applying it as a final resort?
I honestly don't believe that there is such a thing as a final resort when you come to a situation where you've got a child having an addiction, because the problem never ever goes away. The truth is that parents have to come to the realization that they are managing something one day at a time. And it's about understanding, putting the boundaries in place, and finding ways in which you can support the child, because in that place, like you say, it is about putting them in rehab. It's a continuous process, and it's an up and down process. So it's where we're trying rehab again. Okay, what is the next step? It's about the parents understanding where they can start, where their giving starts and where their giving stops. So for me, a tough love situation there would be a daily management process of how they interact with their child, as opposed to the idea of tough love meaning I'm going to kick them out. Sometimes parents get to the end of their their threshold place, and that is where the parents need the support to help them to navigate one day at a time with their child.
And so, how do we know when to give tough love? Because I can tell you, Kale, that it's not the default response. And I don't think parents want to be tough initially. So how do we know when to start giving tough love?
The answer to that question, and I'd love you to tell me what you define as what that tough love is that they don't want to give. Because my truth of tough love is about having boundaries every small situation, whether it's small or whether it's large. So when you talk about when is the right time to give love, what are you meaning by tough love in that situation?
I don't know. I think for me, so the types of tough love that I've seen around me have been withholding certain things. So saying, you're not going to get this, even though the other children are going to get it, or you're not going to go there. I'm not going to allow you to go there. It's really has been more around withholding. But I have seen some extreme instances, even in my own family, where people are thrown out, so to speak, and told, or maybe told you're going to move to the village with your grandparents because you don't know how to act. So those are the types of tough love that I've seen.
Okay, so my answer to that is we never withhold love or presence or listening, so seeing them, but when do you impose tough love in terms of withholding? You are not getting what the other children are getting. You are not getting to go out somewhere. That must be happening. That tough love must be happening at the age of 2 and every single day of their lives. So when it comes to a situation where you've got a teenager or a young adult who's addicted, the problem is that the parents haven't implemented the small tough love situations all along their life. In some instances, I'm not saying all instances, but my answer is tough love needs to be there all the time, one small situation at a time, because that's what actually builds accountability. When you are saying, okay, so in a small instance with young children, this is how often you have screen time, for example. If you guys are not going to clean up your toys or whatever that situation is, that is when tomorrow you are not going to get your screen time. That's a tough love moment. And you're right, parents don't like to do it. But if we can be consistent with the small moments, that can set up the foundations so that the more difficult times when you've got tough love with a child with addiction becomes less likely.
Yeah. Oh, I really like how you introduce tough love as, something that should happen even before there's trouble, even before you start seeing the cracks and the problems. And maybe the reason why we're having the troubles, as you say, is because we did not have tough love in the first place. I'm speaking to Gail Friend. She's an expert in parent-child relationships, and we're speaking about tough love. Is it helpful or is it hurting? I also want to hear from the parents. How do you go about giving tough love? Is it something that you are able to give? And as a parent myself, I have a little 1-year-old Gail, and she, of course, now she knows no and yes. She knows what's right and wrong to an extent. She can figure out when I'm not so happy with what she's doing. But I can tell you that it hurts sometimes to have to withhold certain things or to keep things from her because I said, no, 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 you can't do that, And she's almost 2 now. So I think she can figure it out. And I think it's a struggle that many parents have in how to give age appropriate tough love, but to give tough love in their parenting process. We're going to be taking more of your calls on this right after this break.
John Perlman. Weekday afternoons,
3 to 6.
We've been reflecting on a tragedy on the N1 near Bila, a fatal accident. So where do trauma counselors begin working in an accident scene like this?
When we're talking about a young person that has experienced multiple traumas within a short space of time, you're thinking that what resilience do they have? What are they thinking in that moment? Are they actually processing or are they still in shock? So there's lots to actually unpack.
Tanisha Godan Narotam, registered counsellor.
John Perlman.
3 to 6 on 702.
Start the year right with We Buy Cars. Selling your vehicle, they'll come to you, handle everything and pay you instantly. Simply visit webuycars.co.za and complete the form to discover what they'll offer you. Need a new ride for the new year? Browse thousands of options online or at any We Buy Cars branch nationally. We Buy Cars. Buy or sell the simple way.
If you're CEO or CFO looking to grow across Africa, then the next 60 seconds are for you. Because in that short time, one bank in Africa will process over 300 million rand. That's 430 billion rand every day. Right now, we have 17.7 trillion rand of the continent's assets under custody management, making us far and away the largest bank by assets in Africa. Which is why in 2025, we were voted Best Bank for Corporates in Africa at the Euro Money Awards for Excellence. So, if you're looking for a bank with scale, we're easy to find. We're in 21 key markets across Africa, and we've been on the continent for 163 years, so we are not going anywhere. Standard Bank Corporate and Investment Banking. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Gauteng is currently experiencing high water consumption. To avoid water interruptions, residents are urged to use water sparingly to allow equitable supply. Act now, save water. Every drop counts. This message is brought to you by the Department of Water and Sanitation, Rand Water, Gauteng Provincial Government, City of Johannesburg, City of Tshwane, and City of Ekurhuleni.
702.
Family Matters.
It is Family Matters right here on 702. It's the Clement Manyathela Show. My name is Mudisi. I'm in for Clem this morning. We're speaking about tough love. Is it helpful or is it hurtful? Gail Friend is an expert in parent-child relationships, and she's on the line talking us through this topic. Gail, I suppose, I spoke about my 1-year-old. She's 18 months now. So she's approaching 2, and I've already started, of course, when she does the hitting, and I try withhold certain things sometimes, and she doesn't really get it yet, but it was something she does understand. At what age is tough love appropriate, and what does it look like at the different ages and phases in a child's life?
Yes. So for me, this age at this 1.5, 2 is the perfect age. That is where I do most of my work, especially when it comes into now the tantrum phase. So tough love, to be introducing it now in small doses. We often see tough love as an idea that it's one or the other. And I'm going, how can you have both? You have loving moments and you have tough moments. So to answer your question of what does it look like, in a little child of 18 months, when you say she doesn't get it, you're absolutely right. Every interaction that you have with your little one, you are developing her perspective and understanding, even though she can't cognitively articulate it for you yet. But you're still knowing, if you are clear in your words, then she learns, and it's the repetition that she learns that this is how things are. So what tough love looks like there is when you're instilling a boundary, you'd never make it personal. You would always go, in our house, we don't throw food, or whatever that situation is, or in our house, we don't hit. So in that place, you are not making her wrong. You are making the statement where her brain is learning each time you repeat it, that that's what happens. And then the consequence, so in other words, to a toddler or little one like yours, the word no is quite abstract for them. So if you are going, we don't hit or we don't throw food, it's a very short statement, and that's what her brain learns. So she's learning boundaries then without it being about her. And then it's always about having a very short after conversation. She could get upset with you. It would be having a short after conversation with one sentence to be going, Lovey, we eat food nicely. And that's a connection moment. You can be validating her to go, I know you're really upset and we don't throw food and you take the plate away, could be the tough love situation.
And how do you know that that tough love is working?
It's a good question, because so often we as parents want to measure whether it's working based on, did you get the result in the moment? And the answer is that it's not about in the moment. It's about understanding that you are building your child's understanding one conversation at a time. When you're looking at the age between 18 months and 3 to 4 years, you can get a result within the first week or so. It's about being consistent with your words, and it's about trusting the process. If you think about it, like when we go to gym and we lift weights for the first time, we haven't developed the muscle yet. So it doesn't mean it's not working. It means you've got to do it consistently before you see the result. It's the same thing, the way you are implementing your boundaries with your toddler. Every time you repeat the same thing, you are consciously building their perspective. And in that place, their brains at this age is like a sponge. So everything you say to them, they're taking it in. So when you are clear, you've got to trust the process, and you'll be amazed. I've got clients who come back to me after a week to go, okay, it's finished now, because they trusted it and they just carried on consistently.
I think in the same breath, how do you know that the tough love is doing more harm?
The tough love will always do harm if you are making it personal. If you are, often parents can think that telling their children that they are wrong or bad and they're naughty, it feels like that will motivate them to do better. And my answer is it doesn't. The harm comes in when you make your child wrong. So it's okay for them to be upset, but we've got to practice as parents to be going, this is a situation, no throwing toys are allowed, or whatever that is not about them. The moment you have made it you, or I'm telling you what to do, you're making it personal, and that's when it can cause harm. So my answer is to always have an after conversation where you're building their perspective about what happens. It's not about what they did wrong. Does that answer your question?
It does.
In other words, it's harmful if you're making about them doing something wrong as opposed to the situation and the lesson you're teaching them. We don't throw food. You are a bad child because you threw, you're naughty. That's the distinction.
Someone on the WhatsApp line says, hi, Khomozo, I have a son who's 24 and started smoking dacha for 4 years now. I spoke to him and referred him to counseling. It's not helping. I'm a single parent. He's graduating at varsity this year. Please advise. That's from Katero. So how would she apply that?
When it comes to a child that age, it is really difficult because at 24 years old, she actually doesn't have the control and the influence she would like. It is actually up to him. You know, I'm talking when we speak about your 18 months, you have influence, you have control and total power to create in the moment to create and develop the right mental and emotional patterns in them. When you get to a child who's smoking dagga, it is so much more complex. You know, there are so many questions I'd need to ask her to be able to understand what system you would start to implement. This is not having a conversation they understand and they'll stop. There is complexity around what is her relationship like with him. Does he respect her? Has she put in previous boundaries in his childhood? Does he have friends that are influencing that? What is his sense of self and confidence to be able to say no to his peers? What is the need behind him wanting to smoke dagga? It's not about having a conversation. It's about now looking at the problem and unpacking and starting where do we need to start to build connection and influence, and then getting that support from the intervention. There are lots of aspects that need to be looked at in order for her to solve this. But ultimately, there's certain things that she can put in place where there are boundaries, what she allows and what she doesn't allow. And then the rest is actually she can't control whether he stops or not. That's a decision he has to make. And it's about building the relationship and love and connection with him that she has influence to be able to get him to change that. It's about seeing his need behind the dagga.
We're speaking about tough love. Is it helpful or hurting? Girlfriend is my guest, and she's still on the line with us. I'm going to be taking more of your calls. I do see your WhatsApps coming in. We'll be taking more of them after the headlines. Bali Dlamini is standing by. Good morning.
Thanks, Khomotso. Good morning. Controversial Northwest businessman Brown Makozi will have to spend the next 7 days behind bars after his bail application was set down for next week. Makozi made a brief appearance in the Johannesburg Magistrates Court today. He faces charges of defeating the ends of justice for staging his own assassination attempt in Vosloorus in November last year. The Africa Centre for Disease Control and Prevention says it is relying on public health measures to combat the current Ebola outbreak. Director General Jean Kasia led a coordinated regional response at its online special briefing on the disease outbreak at the weekend. Kasia warned that there is no vaccine for the strain that is driving the current outbreak. And a Road Traffic Management Corporation report shows a significant drop in fraudulent learner's license passes in the Western Cape. Officials say features such as fingerprint verification, touchscreen kiosks and randomized generated questions have helped to reduce corruption and improve fairness. Well, those are the headlines. This EWN and more at midday or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
For your last traffic update from me, Khomotso Munyai, just look out for faulty traffic lights in Randburg at the N1 South in Malibongwe, in Fourways at Winnie Mandela and Monte Casino, in Woodmead at Woodmead and Woodlands, as well as in Kyalami at the R55 and Kenilworth. Over in the city of Tshwane, traffic lights are also out in Gasfontein at EC Smart Street and Gasfontein Road, in Centurion at Old Johannesburg and Brakfontein, in Monument Park at the R21 and Solomon Mahlangu Drive, and lastly, in Centurion at Old Johannesburg and Trichard, traffic lights are out there. Karabo Jali is up next with your next traffic update from me. Have a good afternoon.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
The Midday Report with Mandy Wiener.
The Midday Report at its heart is a current affairs show, but it really is a show about everything you need to know about and everything you didn't know you needed to know about. Our listener is sharp, plugged in, curious, has developed opinions, but is still open to learning new things. My favorite part is how witty, sharp, and funny our listener is. What we cover every day is breaking news, current affairs, politics, the courts, global developments, science, education, popular culture, sports, books, and of course, good things too. I like to think of it as a lunchbox with a little bit of everything. What I love about 702 Land is that it is full of energy. There's always something happening, a developing story to follow. But it's not parochial. The 702 family cares about what is happening in the world around them and how we plug into that.
The Midday Report with Mandy Wiener. Weekdays from 12 to 1 p.m.
Corporate Sat Care promotes and encourages corporate leaders and all citizens to walk the talk for a better South Africa. Catch Corporate Sat Care this Wednesday at 10 to 9 featuring RMB. Their head corporate client coverage, Nana Phiri, will be in conversation with Bongani Bingwa. Join us every Wednesday as we highlight the efforts of companies and brands dedicated to building our country. Corporate Sat Care is a Prime Media Cares initiative with 702 and Prime Media Outdoor. 702, let's walk the talk and make a difference together.
Time. When you're a kid, it moves slower than a sloth trying to get through airport security. There is just so much of it. Skip forward a few years to your 20s. Time is still your friend. It says have some balance. Go party and have fun. Then your 30s hit. And time suddenly steps on the accelerator like it's trying to catch a traffic light before it goes red. 40s. Now time is moving faster than your 10-year-old on a sugar high. 50. You're desperately trying to save as much as you can, but time is moving so fast. And all you can think is, where did all the time go? That's why after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time for some much-deserved you time. Now, isn't that a compelling enough reason to invest? Ellen Gray, long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
When it comes to protecting your workforce, trust the workwear brand that has been protecting workers for over 150 years, Sweetall. Sweetall has overalls and uniform solutions for every industry, so your team is safe, comfortable, and ready to tackle any challenge. Visit our Boksburg showroom, shop A1 Atlas Road, Westwood, Boksburg, or go to sweetall.com today. Sweetall, we never let you down. Superior protective workwear since 1871.
702.
Family Matters.
Welcome back. This is the Clement Manyathela Show. My name is Komoto Mudise. I'm in for Clem this morning. And of course, it's Family Matters time. We're talking about tough love and whether it's helpful or if it's doing more harm. My guest is Gail Friend, an expert in parent-child relationships. I do see your WhatsApps. Let's take some voice notes.
Good morning, 702 lenders. Good morning, Matala. Yeah, I'd like to remain anonymous. Yeah, I'm one of those people who experienced tough love. Looking back at my life from where I'm at now, I would really definitely say tough love really worked for me. It really worked for me. It made me to push and had that drive because I had the thing in my mind that, you know what, I want to be better and have my own things and not having to rely on my parents and have the mentality that says I'm entitled to what belongs to them. So, yeah, tough love really worked for me, but back then it really didn't feel like, you know what, I was loved. But yeah, where I'm at today, I'd definitely say tough love really worked. Thank you.
Thank you for that voice note. Gail, you know, what I find to be interesting from what she says is that she didn't see it at the time. And I think it's similar to what she said about even as parents, you might not see the outcome of your actions, your tough love at the time, but you know that it's working. And I think even from the perspective of the person who's experiencing or receiving the tough love, at the time, it doesn't make sense to them. But the hope is that they will see the benefit, in the future.
I totally agree. And that's where, when you're in the moment, you always want to make sure that you are doing two timings of what you do. So tough love in the moment is when you're in that moment where you're putting the boundary in. And we always have an after conversation. It can be the next day, it can be that night, where you're having a conversation where you validate how they felt in the moment and you're giving them one or two sentences to give them an understanding of why and how we've implemented that boundary. When it comes, it's so beautiful to hear, like with that listener, where she has found the tough love really helped her. The truth is that as you go along the process, it's about parents becoming more aware of what they are, how their child is responding, because you can have two children in one family One child can do really well and another child can have very low self-esteem from the same parenting strategy. And that's got everything to do with how the child is perceiving your tough love. So a parent's job is not only, as complicated as it is, not only about doing the tough love in the moment, having the after conversation to develop perspective, but it's also to start to notice how your child is interpreting it. So it's not about ignoring the response, like after 2 or 3 weeks, if there's absolutely no response, or your child is starting to withdraw, or your child is starting to rebel back. It's about then looking and then readjusting and getting clearer in your process. So the answer to that is that we've got to also be noticing how our children are responding and if they are doing that over time.
Someone else here saying, Komotso, good morning. I've always been a disciplinarian, but what do you do when your child steals from you and just clams up and won't engage? He just looks at you. Dealing with all the children can be challenging. So I really don't blame parents who show their kids the door. Tough love does sometimes help and sometimes not. And I think that's it's similar to the WhatsApp from earlier, right? Around the 24-year-old who's on Dacha. It's difficult when it's an adult child or sometimes even an adult sibling, isn't it?
It's absolutely difficult. And this viewer's comment here, when you talk about I've been a disciplinarian and my child clams up and just won't speak, that is an example of exactly what I've just said in a place where that is how they're responding. My answer to that is we've got to get more intentional with the way you are disciplining. So the question we would be asking is, in the discipline situation, are you making it personal? In the discipline situation, are you raising your voice, or have you got clarity and separating to go, this is how it works? When it's become a relationship thing in that situation where the child is clamming up, the starting point is to start. You can still carry on with the boundaries, but you want to be intentional with creating a lot of connection moments outside discipline moments. And it can be small moments where you're going and looking in their eyes and just telling them that you love them. Moments where you're asking them, how are they doing today? So it's baby conversations held consistently to build connection outside of the discipline moments that can start to balance that, because the goal is then to get your child to feel safe, that they're able to talk to you. And that's where the after conversations and the outside of the moments actually create the repair work for the discipline moments in that situation.
Yeah.
So it's about getting more clarity in the way you are disciplining to adjust your strategy a bit.
Yeah, I also think there's an important point there to make about communication. Let's take another voice note. All right, we are going to be, I do see many of them coming in, and so we'll be taking them in just a short while. I do think that there's here's someone else who says, thanks for the great show. My second born of 3, who's almost 7, is great at school, but erupts when I fetch him after school. He can't process his emotions. I've tried many approaches. He just started with a play therapist. It's like he goes into a rage tunnel and can't see out. Any advice for things I can try? Thank you. I don't know, Gail. This sounds more like it's not someone who's gone wayward or a child who's naughty,
Yes.
so to speak. But this sounds like a psychological issue, no?
Not necessarily. I don't know if I'm allowed to, but I'd love you to attend my webinar on the 28th of May, and it's on tantrums,
Yeah.
and especially for 1 to 4-year-olds. You can look up on my website and my Instagram. But to answer your question in that place, it is about putting a structure in place. In the moment, what you want to be doing is validating the rage and going, I can see you really angry. I can see you really angry. At such a young age, you want to be able to, in that moment, not need a result. You've got to sit there and validate them and let them process it through. The most important part then is after that rage is to have a conversation afterwards to be going, I can see you were really upset when you came home from school. What was happening? Now, the chances that they're not going to be able to articulate what the reason is, and they might give you rubbish as an answer, but the truth is that just asking the brain that question is getting them to introspect and their brain working to try and understand and get their own self-awareness about what was upsetting them. So again, it's not about instant results. It's about understanding the process. You're not going to solve that rage problem in one session. You get consistent with validating every time the tantrum happens, and then you would have a look and go, get articulate with what you say in your after conversation where you're developing an opinion. And then after a week or so, you're going to find you're going to get a result. The other part is to look at emotionally what's going on in you. Is there a confidence sense when you know is there apprehension when you fetch your child because you know? Is there a feeling of self-doubt within yourself? We need to have a look and go, in my process that I teach, it's about helping you understand how do you build your strength as a mom in that place where you can hold space for that emotional situation. When they're that little and you can be consistently holding your own self and you're able to hold space for them and have a very short after conversation and do that, you can uncondition that really quickly. So if you want to learn more, absolutely, I can help you with that. I've also got a free download called my Tantrum Decoder, which gives you a basic step-by-step on how to start that process.
All right, that is from Kaylin, that concern. And I suppose now reading it, actually, I think, I think it's more, it sounds like an emotional issue, right? And I suppose the child might need help to just deal with their emotions and they need help with being walked through their emotions. It can be difficult also, Gail. I mean, for a 7-year-old, yeah, a 7-year-old, to process emotions, it's not always the easiest of things.
It's not the easiest of things at all, and it doesn't mean that it's wrong or there's something wrong. So for me, it's about if I were to have a look, I would have a look and understand the bigger context of what's happening in the home. But the truth is that to process our emotions is hard for everyone. It's hard for little ones. It's hard for us as adults because we've never been taught. And the truth is the way we process them is if we can get to an acceptance to go, I'm really upset and I can be okay even though I'm upset. Us as moms and parents, we just want our children to be happy the whole time. And it creates an assumption that negative feelings or angry or upset is wrong. But the most important part is to go, how can we be okay that we're upset and listen to the message of what that upset is saying rather than to judge it. Processing difficult emotions like anger is because we're already coming from the assumption that they're wrong. Whereas if we're going, I'm really angry, what is this anger about? What is the message that it's giving me? An example of anger can be I'm upset, maybe a boundary has been crossed with me. And if we can teach children at a young age to understand my anger's okay, what is making me angry, what can I do about it, that's when it works. But unfortunately, most of our learning is about making the behavior after the anger wrong. But our focus needs to be on the anger's okay, what is it telling us, and what can we do to problem solve that upset.
We're speaking to Gail, friend and expert in parent-child relationships. More from her after this.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes on 702.
My show is about your money, and it's about how people have made their money. But it's also about what happened to your money today, what happened on the JSE, what's happening overseas. All of these things, all about the way in which people make their money, spend their money, use their money, and in so many ways, use their money to make more money for them. What I absolutely love about the 702 family and 702 land is the huge warmth of people, the generosity that they show. But I also absolutely love the hustle. Anyone in business is actually trying to improve the economy. They're trying to have an impact on all of us. And there's a go-getting attitude to 702 land that you don't see in so many other places. That's what I really love about 702 land. That getting together and doing something new, and in the process, making money.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes. Weekdays from 6 to 8 p.m.
Managing your workforce shouldn't be complicated. That's why businesses choose Onacy, a proudly South African cloud-based payroll and HR solution. From payroll and e-recruitment to performance management and self-service tools, we streamline the way businesses handle their people. Scalable, secure, and always online, our system evolves with your needs because your workforce deserves the best. Switch to Onacy and experience payroll and HR done right. Visit onacy.com today.
Aziz Shege, be in the game. Show your love for D-Ski with Hollywood Bets. We're taking the soccer season to new heights. You could win a share of 4 million rand in cash and prizes, including an all-new Toyota Hilux double cab or Toyota Starlet Cross. All you have to do is bet 10 rand or more on any soccer fixture online or at your nearest branch. Bet now and strike for glory. T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
The Money Show.
Weekday evenings at 6.
How does the system work? So if a song is played, say, 100 times on Spotify, how much is paid over by you? How does that ratio work?
The way it works is that there's no fixed rand amount for 100 streams. This is one of the biggest misunderstandings about streaming. Spotify pays royalties based on stream share.
Jocelyn Mohutu Remy, the managing director for Spotify.
The Money Show
on 702. Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa Business Banking, featuring the AgriTrends 2026 Autumn Edition. In agriculture, smart moves need smart insights. Get the latest AgriTrends report at absaagritrends.co.za. Absa is a registered FSP.
702.
Family Matters.
Welcome back. It's about 10 minutes before 12, and it is Family Matters. We're talking tough love. I do see many of your voice notes coming in. Let's take some.
Show on tough love, but I just think that tough love from one culture to the next or one family to the next is relative. So what actually can be identified as tough love? Because and the outcome is not always the same, like how we're saying, the benefits in future. I'm married to somebody that grew up in a family where there was tough love. There was no dad. The mother did not have time, for people to cry around and stuff like that. They need to, toughen up for the mission because now we had to fight this and everything else. And now I'm married to, she's my wife now. She has this sense of hyper, independence where she doesn't need anybody. And, she's also tough, very gentle, very whatever that it is. But let me tell you, Khomotso, it's tough to do anything with her because she doesn't need anybody. And that is the issue. You see, it doesn't always turn out to be positive. So I'm very feeling.
Yeah. All right, girlfriend is the expert who's helping us make sense of this. I suppose
yes.
this is when, quote unquote, tough love goes wrong.
I can just send some care out to you because you're absolutely right. Everything that happens in childhood when you are implementing it actually forms relationship patterns, and it does mess up your relationships as adults. And that's why I am so avid about how do you teach parents how to do it early, put in that tough love effectively, because what happened with her is that tough love wasn't implemented correctly, and that's why it's caused that independence. If you think about it, if you get having to fight the whole time, that's not tough love. That's a sad situation where a mom didn't have the skills and she was doing the best that she could. And as a result, your wife has gone to the place where she is hyper independent. That is really everything. We form patterns in order to survive. So your wife has formulated that pattern to feel safe and to go, well, that's the only way she can manage. And unfortunately, our childhood patterns get set in that place and they're not relevant to the current situation, for example, like her relationship with you. That is where I work on a one-to-one basis with people who want to have a look and start to notice that their patterns of behavior of that hyper-independence is impacting their relationships. And we've got to go and help to uncondition those patterns so that they can start to relate to the people in their lives of who they are currently interacting with, as opposed to the automatic program that's in their body. And the way that happens is for her to start re-acknowledging in herself to go, I am safe here. I am safe here. This is in my relationship. I can take small baby steps each day to feel a bit safe and ask for help. I remember in my own personal journey doing this because I was also in a hyper-independent state that it was only about me. And it's about taking small steps, not necessarily in a big vulnerable step where she'll be able to receive from you immediately. It is about taking small steps where she'll ask for help when it's something to do with in the house. Can you help me carry the plate through to the kitchen? Baby steps where you're unconditioning that done daily builds a foundation to help your body to remember that actually it's safe and okay to receive a little bit. And it's that consistent and intentional work that then develops for her to be able to then receive from you. That's where one-to-one support and being intentional with what you practice to uncondition that conditioning inside of her.
All right, let's take another voice note.
Morning, Khomozo. Morning, 702. Tough love is very necessary, Khomozo. And it's very necessary to communicate with it to the child that you're giving to, or your children, to make them understand why you're behaving that way and what you expect from them, so that we can have a mutual understanding and ultimatums. And they should know the benefits of that tough love at the end of it, and when it's done, and give them the choice of the duration of the tough love. It depends on them whether to start behaving or they or continuing with the tough love type of a situation. Your barriers, they should know your limits and everything. It's much nicer when you have communicated about it and being open about it with your kids. They will understand. Also from the lady.
Hi, good day. I would like to remain anonymous. My son is 35, and then I tried to tough love him, and then since last year he is gone. He has got his own place. He's ignoring my calls. He's ignoring my phones. He's not in speaking terms with me, and now it's affecting me. What could I have done in that situation?
Sure, that's a heartbreaking one, hey Gail. The fact that the child has just got no contact.
It's very heartbreaking in that situation, and just lots of love to go out to you. What it is an evidence of is that you weren't given enough of the right skills in order to manage how you did the tough love, and they have chosen to now not be in contact. I'm not sure if you've got contact with them, in other words, that they haven't blocked you perhaps. You know, my answer as a starting point, in this place, you don't really have control of the outcome, but you have got control of what you want to try. So in my answer to that, the starting point would be connection. So if they haven't blocked you, even though you are not getting a response, I would be sending a message maybe once a week, maybe just consistently, where you are offering care and love without needing a result. Now, they will probably in that situation test you to go, well, you just want to give me love because you want me to give you connection. And the answer is we've got to change that as a starting point to be going, I'm going to send a message just to say, I love you and I'd love to chat. And next week it could be, I love you and I really hope that you are doing okay. And unfortunately, to remain detached and not need a response, you at least are getting a sense to be going, this is a starting point to be going, I'm going to from now show love. But then it's also about learning the skills of, if they do then contact you, on how do you navigate conversations and rebuild trust.
All right, Gail, friend, expert in parent-child relationships. Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your insights.
Let's hear from Al, owner of Johnson's Cable, why it pays to switch to Outsurance Business Insurance.
I thought it was going to be difficult to switch to Outsurance Business Insurance. Switching was so quick and easy. I'm happy with the premium that I'm paying now.
For electrical, tradesman services, and all other businesses, get a quote today and see why it pays to switch to Outsurance Business Insurance. Visit outsurance.co.za or call 08600 60,000 today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
The 702 Josie My Josie Walk the Talk is calling you to walk with the people, for the people, on Sunday the 26th of July. Babize bonke. And this year you can choose from 3 different inner city routes. The 5-kilometer Victoria Yards route takes you from Ellis Park through the inspirational Joburg Cricket Club into Victoria Yards and past the Troyville Hotel. You then finish off at Ellis Park. So whether you're taking on the 5-kilometer, the 8-kilometer, or the 15-kilometer, enter now on primemediaplus.com and get ready for the 702 Josie My Josie Walk the Talk, hosted by the City of Johannesburg.
Coming up
on the Midday Report
with Mandy Wiener.
Mandy Wiener, good morning.
Morning.
What's coming on the show?
So, lots of court cases today.
Yes.
Brown Makozi's appeared in court today for, we all knew this was coming, for allegedly staging his own assassination. So we'll speak to his lawyer as well about his arrest. They're concerned about how that was conducted. Witness D's alleged killer returns to the dock today for a bail application as well. We'll speak to the MK party. They want Ramaphosa's impeachment to go ahead immediately. Some debate about whether Ramaphosa will be staying or asking the speaker to stay his impeachment until his court review is heard. We're hearing about a 19-day water shutdown that is coming in Gauteng. So we'll find out about that. Eskom and Rand Water doing some repair work. And then lots of sports to talk about this weekend, Pirates.
Shem. That's the Midday Report in just a bit. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your responses and your WhatsApps and your calls. All very much appreciated. We do it again tomorrow from 9 to 12. Goodbye.
This is EWN.
Good afternoon, I'm Bali Dlamini. Controversial Northwest businessman Brown Makozi will have to spend 7 days behind bars after his bail application was set down for next Monday. Makozi made a brief appearance in the Johannesburg Magistrates Court today. He faces charges of defeating the ends of justice for allegedly staging his own assassination attempt in Vosloorus last November. Makozi's lawyers wanted the bail application to be set down for this Thursday, but the state says it needs more time to verify Makozi's